Good morning, everyone. It's gone 10 o'clock. The warmest of welcome to our first meeting here at the Gisborne District Council. It's 2026. Unfortunately, it's giving 2023 vibes, but we are ready. And as a community, we have already seen a lot this year, but let's get cracking into our council mahi today. I just want to let everyone know we'll have some protesters coming in a little bit later, just filling the space there. But let's start in the right way. I'm going to ask our lovely Deputy Mayor to open with Karakia for us.
Tēnā tātou katoa. Me noi tātou. E te atua tēnei mātou o ponoa e tuku whakamoemiti atu ki a koe I tēnei ata. E te atua nei tā mātou e noi e tuku ana ki a koe. Kia uhia mai tōkoro wai aroha, tōkoro wai manaki, ki runga I a rātou e au pēhi ana I raro I ngā taumahatanga o ngā waipuketanga I ngā wiki tata kua pahure. Manaki tia I a rātou me a rātou whānau. Whakakahangia I ngā kaimahi, e tuku ana I o rātou katoa ki te whakapai, ki te hāpai, ki te manaki I ngā whānau kua pā ki enei taumahatanga. Koe nei tā mātou I noi atu ki a koe I tēnei ata e te atua I runga I te ingoa tautama I Ukraiti. Āmini.
Thank you for that. We'll just allow everyone to come in. Okay, we'll just carry on and do our stuff. Okay. We have a lovely full house this morning. So welcome to all councillors. I hope everyone had a wonderful break and is ready for an exciting and challenging 2026. Declarations of interest. Larry, you go.
Yeah, I'm a resident of Kaiti Beach, so very my interest with
Got that, Jill? And I'm just going to ask everyone today, please use your outside voices. We've got people online and sometimes it's difficult to hear, so please speak nice and loud and clear. Councillor Ria.
Kia ora, I'd like to declare non-pecuniary perceived conflict of interest, which means I will be withdrawing from discussions in relation to Ngati Oneone lease transfer agreements. Kia ora.
Awesome, noted. Also, I am the president of Local Government New Zealand, so the paper on the Ratepayers Assistance Scheme, I'm just noting my conflict there. I will also note that I'm a member of the National Court. Okay, minutes. Take a look. Councillor Borosh, there's an email I saw somewhere. Do you want to speak to that?
It was just a correction on the minutes.
Oh, the highlighted bit? Thank you. Councillors, I'm happy to change the wording there. Councillor Parata.
I'm just happy to move it.
Good. Moved by Councillor Parata.
Sorry.
Ria.
Page 7 minutes, just the spelling of Auntie Mariah Irwin's name under 6.2, please, a correction. And I'll second the moving.
Thank you. So with those changes, moved by Councillor Parata, seconded by Councillor Ria. There's no other comment. We take that as a true note of what was discussed that day. All in favour? All three carried. I also need you, when I ask you to vote, Aye. It's too late. Okay, just kidding. We go to page 5 for our other, that was just updated, which we've just had. We've got our governance work plan on page 7, councillors. So that is something that I just need everyone to take a good look at. This is the stuff that we need to do throughout this year, and it is set out in a way that we bite it off in chunks as we go. There's no leave of absence. So next, I do want to take this opportunity, first of all, to acknowledge the passing of Oliver Sean 3 years ago on Waikanae Beach. We send our aroha to his whānau today, which would be a very, very sad day. Then I also want to send all of Tairawhiti's love to Tauranga and what happened there and the absolute distress that whānau has been going through in the last 10 days, week, and it is still ongoing. I know that everyone feels that hurt, and I do want to acknowledge everyone involved there that have done the work, but mostly I do want to acknowledge what people are going through and the absolute distress for their whānau. I also lastly want to acknowledge really the whole of the North Island, where our whenua has been shredded in the last while, and I want to acknowledge the work from civil defence, not only the Tairawhiti civil defence, but all the other regions across the country where communities came together to sort and look after each other. I have heard stories and seen firsthand the very, very best of humanity, and I do want to acknowledge that today, so thank you for that. Anything I missed? Acknowledgements and tributes? Councillor Ria.
In addition to your acknowledgement, I also want to acknowledge local contractors. Local contractors have been pivotal in helping with restoration and getting lifelines open to communities who have been severely affected by our weather, and those people on the ground working tirelessly, volunteers, donations. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa.
Okay, everyone knows how this works. Everyone who's in the crowd today has done a public deputation before, both groups that are here today. I welcome our friends from Mana Taiao Tairawhiti here. I do not know who's going to come forward. Manu, Tash, are you going to give me guidance who? I've got 4 chairs here, but there are heaps of chairs here. I can pull up more chairs. Please come forward. As always, whānau, we are here to listen. We'll give you between 5 and 10 minutes, and then people can ask questions of clarity if they want to, but at the end of the day, we are mostly here to listen to you. Good morning and welcome. Good morning, how are you, Graham? Lovely to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time. You well? Hi, Judy, how are you? Please feel free to take a seat. It's really informal. We want you can grab that seat as well. Make yourselves at home. Councillors are here to listen, and then possibly ask a question afterwards. Good.
Good to see everybody. Congratulations to you new councillors and to your older ones as well. I hope it's a good term, and look forward to seeing what you do for the region over the next wee while. We just thought we'd do something today. It's been 3 years, as Riet said, since some of us up here came to the previous council and entered the petition, at that time signed by around 10,000 people, and now sort of 12,500, asking council for a number of things. And mid-2024, we came back and did a little progress report on your fellas' progress in responding to those requests, and we thought it would be a good time to do it 3 years on again. On top of that, there's a bit of information that we'll present and share with you that presents some key information on particularly the forestry industry in this region to correct the record and dispel some myths, and hopefully convince some of you who still seem to support the efforts of the industry to have a more relaxed regulatory regime, to take it more seriously and keep the pressure on that industry, which is, I think it's probably fair to say, kicking and screaming into complying with the law, but there's certainly some better practice now as a result of the things that you guys have done since the petition was presented 3 years ago. So just quickly at the top of the page you got there is the stats which have come from Habilis, which was the company that you commissioned to do the transition business case, and what they found was a whole lot of information about the industry that wasn't within the scope of the transition business case, but which was really interesting. We engaged them to put that together as a package that's now in a nice glossy report, which I'll email through to councillors, but the headlines are there. And essentially what it's saying is the forestry industry is not what they claim to be in terms of the impact in the region. And this information's come from Stats New Zealand, it's come from your own information, as well as Earth Sciences New Zealand, which was NIWA. So this is independent information that is scientific and presented here for your consideration, just to put things into perspective. So less than 7% of the region GDP is actually reliant on forestry and logging, and less than 5% of jobs are in that industry. That's not to say that there's a multiplier effect in things like the port, but the port will take a log whether it's been harvested in an ethical, sustainable way or not. And I guess our cry and call has been to make sure that those logs that come to the port are done in a way, produced in a way that isn't costing the environment and isn't costing taxpayers and isn't costing ratepayers what it is at present. The other stuff that report shows is that the industry is costing a whole lot more than it's actually providing, and there's some good information around how the benefits have accrued to the shareholders of those mostly overseas companies since the mid-1990s. In the past, when they were Crown-owned forests, most of the value stayed in the region. Since they were sold off, most of that's gone offshore and it hasn't been shared with the workers and the communities. So they're profiting massively off the destruction that they're causing in this region and not passing that on to the workers, let alone looking after the region. Some other interesting facts in there. 52 million cubic metres of sediment comes off our hills every year. 94% of that is attributed to forestry blocks, mostly harvested blocks. I think it was 84% or something was off the harvested sites. Much worse than pasture, and a massive impact on ecosystems and catchments around the district. There's a bunch of other stuff in there, and I'll let you read that report, and we'll probably come and have some more commentary on that at some point. Moving on to the scorecard. That's the one on the workers' share. That's where the dark blue drops off. That's 1988. And you can see how much the green is the profits that are going to the companies, not staying in the community. The brown there is the harvested pine, the 83%, sorry, not 84%, of sediment coming off those harvested sites, of the 50 plus million tonnes of sediment every year. Basically this one's around how much, there's 1.2 billion that was spent 2024-25 financial year on fixing up the damage and cleaning up the mess that the industry created. Well, much more than what they were paying in taxes, certainly. So these were the main things that we came to you in 2023 to ask. The first was for the independent inquiry into land use in the region. And council supported that vigorously, and eventually the government of the day, particularly after Cyclone Gabrielle, this was all before Gabrielle we presented to you, after Cyclone Hale, and the day after Oliver was killed at Waikanae. I spoke to his auntie this week, and she was very supportive of us presenting again. She was encouraging of the work of Mana Taiao Tairawhiti, and the family was encouraging of the work that GDC had done as well in the period since. So we got that inquiry, which was awesome. What we didn't get was much response from central government. There are a lot of those 49 recommendations aimed at central government. We did get 4 responses from the previous government. 2 of those were very significant. One was around ensuring that companies need to clean up the mess on their harvest sites. They allow for 15 cubic metres or 15 tonne of slash to remain per hectare. Some of these sites are up to 4,000 hectares of clearfell, so you can do the maths on what that is. So there's still some, when Dana Kirkpatrick in the media today says that the forestry company, and Julian Conn, I think, said the same when he spoke to you, that they're required to pick up every last pine cone, that's total bullshit. And so the 15 cubic metres of slash is allowed to remain on the most erosion-prone slopes, let alone anything else. Those rules were just for the most erosion-prone slopes. So we got that from the previous Labour government. We also got the ability that people like Trevor Freeman had argued for many years, who was the soil conservator in this district, working for council, asking for Gisborne District Council to be able to make rules that are appropriate for its region. Back into 2015-16, Tui was part of this myself and others, the rule setting for the industry, the national environmental standards. They said that every council had to follow the same rules. The industry had been complaining that there were too many different rules across councils. And what that meant was essentially it catered to the lowest common denominator. And so it made it easiest as possible for the companies, and councils like yourselves were restricted and your hands were tied in trying to make rules that were appropriate for the geology in this region, which we know is totally different to Kaingaroa and Central Plateau. And in changing climate, increasing weather events that you're needing to respond to now. So we didn't get much from that, and then we've got even less from the current administration. There's been no response. We asked Dana Kirkpatrick what their position was, crickets. So we're still waiting and hoping that there might be that might be dusted off and looked at again. There were some great recommendations from that report that Te Kia Parata led. We also asked for regional plan changes, and you have started that work. Unfortunately, because you've tried to be as accommodating as you can to the industry, it's taken far longer than it should have, and you didn't publicly notify it, and then the government put in place the ban on any plan changes, and so just before Christmas you asked for an exemption to that ban. And we're waiting to hear, I guess, but that's going to probably drag on beyond the election before you're going to hear whether you're allowed to change the rules or not. So unfortunately, there's been some good progress there, but it hasn't been able to be enacted because of that restriction. We asked if you could put yourselves forward as a pilot for the RMA reforms. Unfortunately, those got canned by the new government when it came in, so that didn't go anywhere. Regional transition was a big part of it, and again, to your credit, you've invested in the Transition Advisory Group that brought together really diverse, disparate interests from forestry and farming, and some of us from the community environmental perspectives, as well as yourselves as regulators at MPI. And that was an amazing process. It built consensus and came to a place of no one being absolutely happy with it, but everyone being able to live with what's in that business case. And again, before Christmas, you guys supported it going forward to central government. And in the last week, you've been told that there's no support from central government. I suspect some of that was after we had our last meeting in this room, and everyone was asked, can everyone live with it? Please speak now or forever hold your peace. No one spoke up. The next week, Julian Conn from the Eastern Wood Council was in the media bagging that business case. And he's continued to do that in a number of media outlets. So basically, we have no confidence in the Eastern Wood Council as long as Julian Conn is their spokesperson. He can't be trusted. We all went through an 18-month process. You guys spent possibly $500,000 on that process for it to be wasted, essentially, because we couldn't show regional unity because Julian Conn was a dick and complained about it. So that's, and again, I hope that we can convince central government that it's worth investing in. There's so much consensus there. The majority of the participants were from the forestry industry in that tag group. So we got that agreement, let's move forward with that. And that's what Mana Taiao Tairawhiti is asking for. We're not saying everything has to be our way. Again, contrary to what Dana Kirkpatrick was saying in the media today, we're saying here's an agreement that we came to as a region. Let's support that and move forward, something that everybody could live with, we thought. Government scrapped the Just Transition Unit, so again, we're not holding out much hope there. And the other thing we presented was the use of enforcement orders, which Council hadn't done up until that point. And again, to your credit, the previous Council's credit, you took that seriously and started pursuing enforcement orders against forestry companies, and they've been extremely successful. They've probably been the most effective thing you've done in the last 10 years in terms of forestry changing their practice. We heard yesterday from some contractors in Tolaga Bay, they're cleaning up the Samnik site, which is one of the worst offenders, and they told our member who they were speaking to they're doing that so that to avoid the directors of that company going to jail. And that's how seriously they're taking it at last. But it takes that sort of pressure, and it takes putting the company directors' names on those charge sheets before these companies will wake up and do something. So again, credit to you guys. Unfortunately, that's also an expensive process. You're spending tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars per court case on lawyers and court fees when if these companies just followed the law, you wouldn't need to. One of the things we're asking you to do is to require all companies to do risk assessments on their blocks. That's one of the big things that's come out of these enforcement orders, is requiring independent assessments of the risk on these slopes from what remains of the trees. That's one thing we're asking for you to go back to your consents. You're allowed to add new conditions to consents when there's new information that's come to hand. That's one thing you could do. You could also stop allowing planting and harvesting in red and orange zone land. I know the red and orange zones aren't perfect, but you're still allowing that to happen, and there's been hundreds of thousands of hectares that you've allowed to happen in the last 3 years that are new plantings on farmland in red zone. And what's that going to look like in 30 years' time? That's still being allowed to continue under your watch. Sorry, quickly. And so I guess sort of our main message is you don't have to pander to this industry. They're not as powerful as you think they are. And you can stand up, and you have done that to some degree, but I also hear you trying to accommodate them. Just, I think we're saying you don't have to give them everything they want. And I also will encourage you to put more pressure on MPs and ministers. It's election year. You should be employing a public relations, government relations agent in Wellington to walk the corridors and knock on doors. Talk to every party, see if they're committed to progressing that transition plan that the current administration, coalition government said they're not going to progress. So don't put it all on red. You can all help, and you can also fund some experts to do some of that work to facilitate, grease the wheels of Wellington bureaucracy and politics to help this region survive. Because without that transition plan, I'm not sure what the picture looks like for this region. Anything else?
Yeah, so, 3 years since all this was started, and just to get that sort of status report of how we're going forward as a region. So, yeah, and we've been involved with the TAG group as well as others that are in our group. Yeah, I just thought that 2026 was going to be our year. It seems to be slipping away. So, with the urgency, if we get all these weather events and what it means for our region, and so we're living at the short end of the stick. And for those that don't know me, I live at Tikapa, which is at the mouth of the Waipu on the south side, and so. Yeah, our beach was looking like our beach of old for a couple of years, and now it's back. The black ring is back on our beach again. So, and a lot of that is pines, and so I wasn't naive to think that it would stop and wasn't going to happen. But yeah, it's a constant reminder, and so the anxiety levels for our region when it starts to rain heavy on the roof is just, yeah, I just never even thought it was a thing, but it is. So yeah, there's a lot of decisions to be made in this room that is for our long-term, for our region's long-term future. And so, yeah, not here to point any blame or that we which
those who don't know me, Hira Naura, born and bred in Uawa, so I've watched our beautiful catchment, our river and our ocean go from something real pristine that our northern relations were jealous of to what it is now. I live at Oneone now. It's probably one of the two safest beaches on the coast, in my opinion. Oneone being one, Whangara the other. We don't have the big catchments. I feel for my whangara relations though, because I've seen what's about to start coming down the Pākarai from up. When I came in here 3 years ago, I carried 2 people in here with me, my mother Ngāhuia and my uncle Paratini. And they were both staunch advocates and outspoken about their view of what defines us as Māori. In their view, we are all Māori. We are all of the land. Our ancestors were all people of the land. We are all Māori. Me, I'm Hauiti Māori. I got a bit of Parau Māori in me, Mahaki Māori, and a bit of Irish Māori. But I am Māori. I'm of the land, and my only responsibility is to the land. And when we all accept that as Māori, our responsibility is to the land, then we can start, I think truly then we'll start rehabilitating the land, rehabilitating our environment, and ultimately rehabilitating ourselves. And it's small steps. People like Graham, I look at them in Tui and I think, whoa, they're giant steps. But small steps, and I think of mahi like that's going on at Titirangi with Ngati Oneone, awesome. What's happening with the Waikanai and other areas is awesome. Those are the things. Brainwash our kids with those things. That's what I believe. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Kia ora koutou. Tēnā tātou, ko tui mo ngā haupun ko e ingoa, no rua tōre ahau. So I live under the guardianship of our Paemaunga, and mentioning our Paemaunga, our two iwi of Ngati Pro have worked very hard over the last 5 years and continue to work hard to secure funding to restore our kuia, Te Raukumara, which is a huge, vast estate of Tairawhiti and the other side's interior, to ensure the restoration mainly of the ngahere, which is holding those steep, or was once holding those steep, that steep terrain together. So there's also a lot of erosion that goes on in there. So that's a big challenge that we've stood up, and we've done a large part of the work. And because we had jurisdiction there as the customary owners, and it is public conservation land, so we've actually taken on the work of the Crown, who took that estate many, many years ago. However, the land that we have come to largely advocate for, regardless of whose general title or Māori title, whatever title, it's one whenua, but the jurisdiction is with the Crown and more importantly with the GDC. So you hold the power to create the necessary change. The geology of Tairawhiti, we cannot change. The climate of Tairawhiti, we cannot change, but we can make incremental changes in terms of climate change. So what I'm saying is what we can change actually rests here in this room with all of you. So the legacy that has been put down in the last 3 years, okay? Some good work has gone on, some very good work. And we're just here to implore our leadership at this table to create the legacy that all of our mokopuna are going to remember us for. And we do it together, but there's things you do, there's things we do. Iwi, as my tuahine said, you know, I like the way you put it, we are all Māori, and it's better that we all think that, because it will unite us. We might not all be tangata o te whenua, but we all live here, we all have a responsibility, and we all have mokopuna, and we all have common sense. So it's not easy trying to shuffle your interests that you may have, because, you know, you're pressured by different groups, different land blocks, you know, different stakeholders about how you should make decisions. But I think at the end of the day, your collective decision should be the best decision for now and into the future for our mokopuna. And that mokopuna decision phrase, that catchphrase, is it's it's solid. You can never go wrong if you make the decision for them. And yeah, I think that's all I've got to say. I know that all of our people who've been a part of this kaupapa over the last 3 years, our mana Taiao, Tairawhiti, our whānau, our young people, those that couldn't be here today, I just want to mihi to them, because I know that their support is here with us. It's a work day. Some of us came out here, took some time off from work. All the people on our hikoi this morning, I just want to thank every single one of you. And I didn't thank earlier, and I should have done a mihi to our mana whenua who are here today, and all of us, who we also whakapapa too, our Ngati Oneone, our rongo whakate, our maha ki me wera atu. So nā reira tīmā koutou. Thank you for that.
Guys, are there any quick questions from councillors? I'm going to allow two. Councillor Older.
Thank you, Ricky.
Is that correct?
That's correct. Older as in the tree.
Older.
Thank you for your delivery. I take exception to bagging.
Question. Questions,
A
thank
question
you.
will follow.
Yep.
I take exception to bagging a representative of an industry, and many of those individuals, aside from the person you bagged, have approached me with a similar story. Enough of that. In the last 3 years, consents have passed at 97% 3 years ago, 65% last year, and only 25% this year. 5 consents out of 20. This is a wall of wood that is getting bigger and bigger. It is becoming unharvestable. We have had native catchments suffer incredibly. What is your answer? My question is, what is your answer for massive pine trees that are unharvested?
A couple of things, and I think your staff are actually working on that very question quite hard. One of them has been, one strategy is poisoning, obviously, and managing it that way. The other is actually just stopping the clear fell harvesting and doing coop harvesting, which is what the experts have been recommending for many years. If those consent applications were coming for small areas rather than hundreds or thousands of hectares, you might find that quite a few more get through the requirements. But clear fell harvesting on these slopes is ridiculous and totally unsustainable, needs to stop.
Yeah.
One more question.
Can I also answer? I just want to say that up in the Waipu catchment, a large portion of our forestry blocks up there that require harvesting are uneconomical to harvest because too far away from the port. And further to that, as Manu has said, that there are many blocks, for example, like the Onepoto block, of which I'm a trustee, has a pine forest that we've been advised by the scientists don't dare harvest it because that whole hillside will fall down. So we're trying to look at ways and how we can get money to take that forest out piece by piece and in small sections and allow the native to come through to continue to try and it's already slipping in huge lots. If you look at the Google Maps, you'll see what happens on a lot of forestry blocks where the actual forest on such steep slopes becomes so heavy that in rain events all those trees just drop, and that is another part of the crises that we are enduring up the coast. And I forgot to say that I live in Ruatoria by the Waipu River. The Mata and the Tapu Wairoa sub-catchments are two of the main largest contributors of the 35 million plus metric tonnes of sediment that comes out of that small river, Waiapu. Out of the river mouth and around the corner is Tikapa Beach, where you saw the photos. Have you seen them? Sir, have you seen them? Of all the kaimwana that feeds out here, all smashed out of their layers. And now our kaimoana has been devastated. Like, we used to go out and get kai in the summer, we don't now. We're afraid, because what the remnants of what is there is all that remains. We have to let it replenish, and that's without any rule or decision. People are too scared to go and get kai because it's so diminished. This is real for us. This is not just us wanting to take time off work today to come and jump up and down.
Thank you for sharing kaupapa with us today. Thank you. Okay, next we have got our lovely friends Judy and Jean, and I see they've brought Noel also, lots of our age-friendly Tairawhiti Trust whānau going to talk to us today. So Jean, are you going to come and talk to us? Judy, you're also coming. Rosie, do you want to come and... no one's going to stop Noel. Here we go, Noel. I knew when I saw you this morning there's trouble. Miriam. Oh, Miriam Swarmbrick, come on. Come and join the group. There's more than enough seats here. I need to see you, and then I see you every day for you today. Good. Grab a seat. This, and there we go. I've been spreading out a bit. Hi, good morning. And like I said earlier, you've done a public deputation before, so you know how we roll. We are very happy, and we're in your hands. You've got the clickers. And I do want to acknowledge Councillor Gregory, who is our representation person on Tairawhiti Positive Ageing Trust as well. So sit back and relax. We're in your hands.
Nui ngā mihi kia koutou. We appreciate being able to present these findings to our new council members and, of course, the others who are still here in Kapai. And we wish you all well in the term of office that you're going to have. Last year, Tairawhiti Positive Ageing Trust invited the then current members of the council over the age of 55 to participate in this age-friendly community needs assessment survey. As an advocacy group for our senior citizens for the last 20 years, we have undertaken several projects, as well as having an input into Council's planning development. We appreciate the support of an appointed councillor over the years to work with our trustees, and Riette was one of those. And we sincerely thank Councillor Debbie Gregory for her overview and guidance over the last few years. We have provided each of you with the completed report we were required to send to Central Government's Office of Seniors. Gisborne District Council is one of the councils that form a national age-friendly network. And this PowerPoint highlights some of the survey findings. Our aim was to engage with over 55-year-olds in our region and to ask them a range of questions designed by the World Health Organization, promoting an age-friendly environment in the places we live. The Trust emphasizes that an age-friendly environment in our community benefits everyone, not just senior citizens. We also added a few other questions to the survey that we thought were relevant to us in Tairawhiti, including how our over 55-year-olds manage the cost of living. Participants could also add their own personal comments in relation to the questions. So we have ended up with some extensive raw data. And this data and each question, I must say, generated sometimes over 100 comments. So this data is already proving useful to Gisborne District Council's advisors, including Elise Miller's recent analysis of the current effectiveness of the council's transport services. So, here we go. So, what is an age-friendly community? And you can see that for everyone, it is about dignity, respect, independence, and it promotes the inclusion of older adults in all areas of community life. And what's included? And this list actually formed the basis for the questions. And you can see that there are a range here that link into very practical things. There's the transportation one, there's the housing one, there's communication, there's health services. So people gave a really good overview. So its purpose was that the Office of Seniors funded this, and they agreed for the Trust to undertake this Who Designed survey to inform an age-friendly needs assessment. And the outcome is for the Office of Seniors, who will link it into their general planning, and also into you people here, as well as a whole range of organisations in our community. And as you can see, we have a large survey group. We have undertook the residents, where we invited the residents over the age of 55, and we felt it was important. You know, people thought, well, you know, the age of retirement is 65, but there is a huge number of between 55 and 65s in our region, and we felt it was important that they have a say too. So, the scope of the work. So, what we did was that we identified what was needed. We, amongst ourselves, our group, came to understand what questions should be asked, and we decided, because of some of the other projects that we'd worked on, that it would be important to maybe get some ongoing data about those. We collected surveys on paper and online, and we had collection boxes here in the council, in the library, and we ran focus groups too. We spoke to a range of organisations. One of the biggest groups we spoke to was the Kaumatua group at Te Poho Rawari. I think there were about 250 there for the Kaumatua Day. And then we collated this data and we identified some common themes. So, who were involved? So, as you can see, we ranged in age. They ranged in age, and I say we because we all took part, from 55 to 94. And we were able to get responses from 456 people in a formal way. We had lots of responses in an informal way as well when we spoke with groups. And you can see the gender as well, in the pie chart. So lots of women filled it in. And Noel, one of our members, took an important role in getting the men to take part too. So where did the survey participants live? Well, we worked really hard to ensure that we had a geographical range from Tiki through to Tinaroto and Matawai and Motu, and by far, of course, we have the local group, but you can see it's also included Makaraka, Wainui, Okatu, and Makarori as well. So we assess the responses as main themes in the research findings. And just looking through those, I'm sure there's very few surprises to you. Housing, cost and affordability, access to GP and specialist care, and the long wait times that people have. Transport and mobility, it's very, very limited in rural areas. Also, there's the impact of loneliness, anxiety, and access to mental health. There's discrimination and ageism in the workplace that people commented on, or the ability to gain employment when you're over a certain age. And so people were mentioning the need for flexibility in employment. And I'm sure that's going to be a big thing in the future too. And there was a very strong sense of community. In fact, many of our people have lived here most of their lives. One of the questions we asked was, how long have you lived in Gisborne? So a lot of us have lived here for a while. We assessed some of the challenges, and this is a list of the biggest challenges that we saw coming from this survey. Ageism and a lost sense of purpose, loneliness, financial insecurity, difficulty with everyday tasks and mobility and transportation, finding the right care provision, access to healthcare services, and a need for physical communication methods, face-to-face. A lot of people mentioned that because there's been quite a strong move away from face-to-face help. It's all done online or on the phone, and a lot of people felt very overcome by this. There's concerns about scams, and we made a special time with people in Tokomaru Bay. We organised a hui in the haven at Tokomaru Bay, and participants mentioned these concerns. Accessibility to tradespeople, insecurity of power supply, connectivity, poor roading and telecommunication. So big areas there. And some of these concerns were repeated again and again. We thought we'd show you some qualitative overviews that we thought you would be particularly interested in, and these you will find in the report too. But interesting that one of the questions linked into information and digital information from the council and other institutions. Was it easy to read in terms of font and size? Was it easy to understand? So as you can see, a lot of people agreed with that information that yes, information from the council was easy to read and understand. So that's good. Of a big concern to us was this pie chart of long-term health conditions. And this shows very clearly that there are a high number of participants who have more than one long-term health condition. So there is a huge reliance that we have on our health system and the support as we go over. Because of our advocacy role for supporting grandparents raising grandchildren, we asked a question on this, and 9.5% of our participants indicated that they were. We know grandparents on fixed incomes find this role a huge financial challenge. Also, 14.4% of participants indicated they had accessed local food banks and other services to get by. Participants highlighted that they appreciated the library, the museum, and the walkways. The high number of disagrees possibly relate to accessibility comments on the unsafe state of footpaths, concerns about the scary speed of traffic and the safe road crossings, curb ramp gradients onto pathways for mobility scooters, etc., etc. There's a whole mass of raw data on those. The Trust appreciates that effective and affordable transportation that services more areas is a huge challenge for the Council. Hopefully, the high number of comments in the survey will assist the advisors as they continue to promote improved access to bus services. Our older citizens do not have printers that can print the most recent coloured bus timetables. Maybe the library could better promote how to obtain a B card along with the printed bus timetables. So just a little dig there. Also, respondents who live outside of Gisborne area have a different perspective on the quality of services, activities and facilities. And amongst Maori Pacific groups, there are sometimes a different approach to ageing than that of the main population in the urban areas. Most participants appreciate living here. We like living in Gisborne, and that includes many excellent services, community groups to join, often contributing to a wide range of volunteer work. Lots of people commented how much they enjoyed being part of groups. The participants mostly appreciate health and social support services available. A practical approach from the Trust is to organise a Keeping Safe workshop during the year. And this kind of resulted from some of the results that we saw had maybe fixable concerns. So that's something that we are going to pick up as a group next year. So this year. So we'll be organising that. As the demographics of our older citizens increases, Tairawhiti Positive Ageing Trust challenges you, the Gisborne City Council, to continue to work towards an age-friendly community. So, thank you.
Thank you for the work. On behalf of us, I also want to thank you for the insights, because that will also help us as we make decisions to see where those crunch points are and how people really experience, using public transport and the state of pavements. So thank you for that as well, Jean. Two questions. Councillor Gibson.
Firstly, really thank you for collating this information. My beautiful grandmother is 98, and I hear a lot of things from my grandmother of things we need to fix in this region, but to have that perspective quantified and validated by many other in that age range across the region is very valuable, so I really appreciate that. My question, because I will get to a question. My question is this. Many regions are places where people go to retire, and many regions are places where people leave because the services aren't what they need, and it's difficult to be elderly there. My question is, has there been work done by your trust or others that you're aware of around whether our ageing population finds Tairawhiti a place where they can stay and be comfortable, a place where other ageing populations come to, or a place where our ageing population feels not serviced enough and needs to leave the region? Because if that is the case, that would really be very sad for our region. That's my question. Is that an okay question?
That is a perfect question, thank you. Judy.
I can speak particularly about the housing stock. A lot of our older folk live in big houses, villa-style houses, but a lot of the maintenance hasn't been kept up on them, and so when it comes to try and downsize, they can't generate enough income from sale to purchase something smaller. So that is a huge concern, and it came up a couple of times in the information. People like coming here to retire. The lifestyle is the biggest thing here that attracts seniors to come into the region. We are quite hard for newcomers to integrate into our community, unfortunately. But there's a lot of groups and stuff. If they can connect either through church or through the groups into that, they are welcomed in and fed. And so they soon settle down into a lifestyle that they wish to have in our community. And particularly we noticed on the coast is the communities are very solid. They really stick together as communities and support their seniors. Not so much in the town. There are some seniors that know the system, and that is a huge worry for us. They don't connect through the health system, they don't connect through churches or organisations. So they're the ones that loneliness particularly affects, and we don't know how to access them because they are hidden. That is huge. Doesn't necessarily answer your question, but it is something that's concerning. So yeah, generally I would say the outcome from the survey is that people find this a great place to retire to and to come to.
I'd like to add one comment to
Miriam.
I think we're older people coming to Gisborne to retire because it's cheaper than where they come from, and they can access housing here that they can't at a price that they can afford, which they can't anywhere else. So, and they're moulding into the community really well. So yeah.
Wow, thank you very much. Jean, Judy, Miriam, Rosie, Noel, thank you for the work you do in our community. We appreciate that. And thank you also for taking the time today to come and talk to us. We really, really appreciate that.
Yes. And please read the report.
Yes.
If you have any questions, you can come back.
I will test them on it, Jean. I'll do a quiz. So we're going to take a 5-minute bathroom break. We'll start 5 minutes past 10. Thank you. And we are just going to move to page 21. We are starting with the two papers in regards to Ngati Oneone statement of intent. So I'm going to pass over to you, Nadine.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'm just hoping Jean is online to respond to any other questions that councillors may have. This is fairly straightforward, this first recommendation for lease. It was as part of, so to set the context again, our statement of intent, where we've agreed to various undertakings and commitments with Ngati Oneone in partnership. This is a report that's seeking to lease the Cambridge Terrace lots, and we publicly notified the notification to lease, and there were no submissions received. Are there any questions?
Questions, page 21, councillors. Councillor Gregory.
Yeah, I have a question. Just relating to talking to the other iwi that have made it clear that they have interest also in this side of on the other side of the river. And it says that it kind of, I just wonder what response we've had from those iwi, particularly Rangawhakata and Ngāi, just to be clear that we do have responses from them, because I wouldn't, otherwise everything to me seems catered high, but I wouldn't want to charge on without being sure that we do have responses from those other iwi.
I'll leave that to you, Jean.
Jean.
Kia ora tātou, through you, Your Worship. We have kept the other interested tangata whenua groupings across the developments, I guess, of the work that we've been doing with the statement of intent process. Short answer to your question, the responses to all the comms that we've sent out have been very, very minimal. It's my understanding that Rangawhakata and Ngāi are working through who will be the mandated group that will represent their interests in this discussion, but Council is yet to receive any sort of definitive direction from the Trust of who that is and when that group may be in a position, or those mandated representatives may be in a position to actually hold a discussion on what the position is of Rangawhakata and Ngāi in relation to the statement of intent mahi, and then obviously all the related kaupapa that we're navigating in terms of leasing and returning of whenua, where we've been requested by Ngati Oneone. As in addition to that, and please excuse me, Madam Chair, if I'm speaking out of turn, but through the Mayor's office, we have been in dialogue with Rangawhakata Iwi Board in an attempt to come together and discuss multiple priorities, namely the relationship, which I would assume that this kaupapa would be a part of that dialogue and consideration once our boards are in a position to be able to meet.
Just further to that, do we not think that we should just wait and not roll over the top of these other people?
Through you, Your Worship, that's a bit of a contradiction to the work that elected members in council has already undertaken. I mean, we've adopted and agreed to the statement of intent. We've been quite clear that these leasing arrangements are temporary, and for the reasons that you highlight is the fact that we haven't had sort of a clear position and response from the other interested mana whenua, tangata whenua parties, and this is a balanced approach for us, in my view, that allows us to still give effect to what we've agreed to within the statement of intent process, but still facilitates and allows the opportunity for other interested parties to be able to weigh into the discussion at a time when they are able to do so.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, in reading this, I actually had the same same concerns actually. There's obviously other iwi with interest. For me, I feel we really need to hear them, see what their thoughts are. There's a resolution agreement with all iwi, but before we start developing, like, it's a bit different to have the lease to the land and to be developing the land. I think developing the land is sort of another step, and once it's developed, it's sort of hard to go back. So
Just a quick response to that through you, Your Worship. Yes, I certainly appreciate what you've raised. I do feel, though, again, against what Council's already committed to. I think it's important that we understand we've already agreed to something, and I appreciate the reservations that some of the elected members may be having. But again, I reinforce that these leasing arrangements are temporary. If I am to sort of view our attempts against our Treaty Compass partnership position, I feel that we've, as the treaty partner we desire to be, have been very open and forthcoming with the ability to partner. But in the same vein, as I've said, we need to understand that we've already made commitment and decision through the SOI process up until now. And for that, at this point in the process, to now still be questioning, I guess, has Council done their due diligence as a treaty partner? That aspect, I think that we have, and this process has been going for a number of months now, and I think that there has been plenty of opportunity for interested parties to come forward and have their say. And again, the idea around temporary leasing arrangements was to give effect to the statement of intent while still acknowledging the very points exist that both councillors have raised.
Can I just add to that what Jean is saying? So this is an interim lease, which you agreed that we would explore and enter into under the statement of intent. That's been done. This is not a transfer of ownership. It does not predetermine any future treaty outcomes. It does not extinguish any iwi interests in this particular area, and any transfer of endowment land, this is endowment land, it is vested as reserve, would require a separate process and a local parliament to do full transfer. So I think we just need to keep within the frame of what we're looking at, which is the lease agreement. No different to other leases that we publicly notify, go through the process. The process then should have elicited any submissions or otherwise against, like other lease processes. We didn't receive any objection, and so therefore we're carrying through that process. And in paragraph 43 of our report, we also do outline that Ngati Oneone has been engaged with Kata and Ratepayer and Te Whanau iwi, and we are not the arbitrator of those relationships, so we just need to be kind of clear on this.
Thank you. To me, I look at this and I go, the intent behind these leases and the development that has been spoken about is really positive for our community. You know, we're not talking about, I'm assuming we're not talking about giant high-rise buildings that are going on these properties. My understanding is we're taking a forest lot in Cambridge Terrace that has been underutilised and actually probably not a huge benefit to our communities, and we're entrusting it through this short 5-year lease, which is short for us but is a long period of time in the establishment of a tree, to Ngati Oneone, who have done huge work through their project and benefiting our community. I see huge benefits for it. Again, I also see Ngati Oneone's historic intent in working with all other interested parties. Even with the yacht club, it's been a bit niggly, but their intent in that engagement process has been really positive. So I don't see any issue with moving ahead with a 5-year lease. It's a short period of time. It allows opportunity for the future, but it also allows huge gains as far as biodiversity goes over that 4 or 5-year period. I see that positive for our community.
Just so we're clear on this one, is that this one is an 11-year lease, the next one is the 5-year
Oh,
lease.
is it?
So, yeah. And the other thing
Even
around,
better for trees.
in terms of development, it is a recreation reserve, so you are restricted by what you can do with the Reserves Act, which are things like recreation or environmental protection, so you won't get any high-rise building here in the current status of that act.
Any other questions of clarity or opinions or anything? If not, okay, then I am going to take us to our recommendation page.
Well, I'll move the first parcel of land.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Alder, seconded by Councillor Tibble. If there's no more negotiations, all in favour? Carried. Okay, we are moving to our next paper, which is page 30. It is the Onepoto Beach lease. Nadine, I'll hand over to you again.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this one is the 5-year term, and what we are recommending in terms of that lease, we're pretty much mirroring what the Gisborne Yacht Club has. So 22 submissions, all received and all in support.
Okay, I'm opening the floor up again for discussions, questions, and now's your time.
So just a yes or no answer. All other iwi have been contacted individually for discussions around this lease.
Yes, through your worship.
Thank you.
Any other questions of clarity? I'm heartened by point number 17, Ngati Oneone seeking to work with Gisborne Yacht Club, currently the adjacent lease council and the wider community to collaborate on a collective vision for Ratepayer and the area. And thank you for that. Any other questions or queries? Okay, if not, I am going to take you to page 31. Councillor Thompson, thank you. You need to speak up.
In both of these, it says there's been no objections raised before the closing 5th December or whatever it was. Has there been any objections since then?
Through you, your worship, no.
Thank you.
Oh, and just supplementary, I'll add, was in discussions with Richard Stannard, a representative of the Yacht Club at the end of last year. He's since reached out a couple of weeks ago and requested that council was able to support and facilitate a discussion between the Yacht Club and Ngati Oneone. He's pointed to a period of after mid-February in terms of availability of Yacht Club members. So I'll be picking up that discussion with Ngati Oneone and trying to progress that forward.
Okay. Nothing else? Do I have a mover of this paper? Moved by Councillor Tibble, seconded by Councillor Gibson. No more discussions? All in favour? Contrary? Carried. Thank you for that. Thank you, Charlotte and Ronelle. Thank you for waiting. It's been a long morning. Okay, Ratepayers Assistance Scheme, page 40. Tony, welcome. Anita, welcome. Just grab a seat. Just grab that seat. No, grab that seat. Go around. Park up next to Anita. Oh, I didn't realise we had a guest. I was like, Tony, why are you sitting next to me? Welcome. How are you?
Very good.
Lovely. Here you go. Come and take a seat. Welcome. And you know Nadine. Good to see you. Okay, we're on page 40, councillors. Like I said earlier, I declare interest because I am the President of Local Government New Zealand, who are in partnership with LGFA doing this work. We're going to hand over to you guys. Anita, thank you.
So this paper seeks councillors' support for the RES, which has basically been designed to support ratepayers experiencing hardships or difficulties. So what we have here is two delegates from Cameron Partners, who have been contracted to do the work on the RES, and also online. Do we have online? Scott Necklin, who is the interim chief executive of LGNZ, so hopefully he's there. Hugo will be doing a presentation just to give you some context around the RAS, and then there'll be an opportunity for questions after that.
It's not showing yet.
Okay, that's all right. He can join us.
Yours, Hugo.
Thank you. Look, really appreciate having the time to speak with you today. Was hoping Scott would be on the line so he could do the introduction, but I'll sort of jump in the meantime while he hopefully joins us. So the LGNZ, the RAS has been under development for quite some time. We were first engaged back in about 2018 by a group of councils to look at some of the issues that New Zealand and councils are facing together. Things like the cost of living crisis, the fact that the population is
Morning, Scott. How are you?
Good morning, all. I'm well, thank you. Nice to see you all. Apologies, I'm running a little bit late, or you're running a little bit early.
No, we are a little bit early, but that's all good. We've got Hugo and Tony and Anita here, but we thought you might just want to do a little introduction and then hand over to Hugo.
Great, thank you for that. So you've obviously met Hugo from Cameron & Partners. So Hugo and Cameron & Partners were the lead advisors for the local government funding agency. So come to this with real credibility and understanding of this space. I think sadly we couldn't get Mark Butcher here today, but Mark Butcher is the chief executive of the funding agency. Mark has been the chief executive, is the inaugural chief executive. He was also part of the establishment of the funding agency, but effectively Local Government New Zealand, Local Government Funding Agency and Cameron & Partners, we have been the champion of the Ratepayer Assistance Scheme from its original kind of inception or when it was a concept that Cameron & Partners came up with about 5 or 6 years ago. And we've since been working alongside 8 funding councils, and we'll talk more about that later on. We are at a very critical juncture, so we're at stage 4 of a 5-stage project process. And that stage 4 was the completion of a final and very comprehensive business case that was submitted to the Minister late last year. The Minister wrote to us early last year to indicate his support, asked us to complete the final business case and a few additional requirements. We completed that and provided the business case to the Minister late last year. That's with DIA, and DIA are putting advice up to the Minister pretty much as we speak now. One of the things that the Minister requested, so while we've got 8 funding council, which probably makes up about 60-70% of the population, the Minister is wanting to get an indication of the wider support across the sector for the Ratepayer Assistance Scheme. And so hence the opportunity to brief you today on the RAS. First of all, to seek your in-principle agreement that you like the concept of the RAS and that you would consider opening the RAS up to your ratepayers if it was stood up. That's primarily the purpose of today's briefing. There will be an opportunity when we move to establish the RAS, there will be an opportunity for councils to take an equity stake in the RAS, but we're not asking for money today. So I want to be really clear. You can access the RAS and have your communities access the RAS without being a shareholder. At some stage, though, we will need to raise the required money to stand this up. And so that's a second conversation. So I just want to plant that seed, but we are not asking for any funding today. Maybe if I just talk very briefly, given Mark couldn't join us, about the Local Government Funding Agency. Many of you will be very familiar with the funding agency. I am sure it's been a very successful, effectively a shared service. LGNZ was part of its establishment going back to 2011. The funding agency effectively is a shared service that has the capability and capacity to provide financing functions for councils. And we have looked very closely at the funding agency and how it operates to then use that and model some of the thinking to the RAS as well. So we just wanted to sort of touch on the success of the funding agency and I guess some of the value that then is transferred to the RAS and the thinking. So the funding agency was established in 2011. Effectively, it was created to aggregate scale and to then use that to provide effective and efficient finance to the sector. It's estimated that the funding agency has saved hundreds of millions, potentially up to $1 billion in margin, finance margin to the sector, so significant savings to that sector, as well as also providing a return on that investment, so a 5.6 cash dividend return back to its shareholders. And so that is primarily some of the thinking that we've kind of transferred to the RAS. We want to make sure that the RAS obviously provides a significant public benefit, but at the same time also will return a return on investment to its shareholders, which will fundamentally be local authorities, as it is for the funding agency, particularly potentially with an equity stake also for the government, so it's got that proximity to central government, and then for it can leverage not only the security of rates, but also having proximity to central government means that it can also attract one of the best credit ratings. It then effectively leverages the security of rates and that credit rating going through the funding agency in the first instance to raise funds and then pass those savings on to ratepayers. I think that's probably enough in terms of the setup comments that I'll make. I'll hand to Hugo now, who can take you through in detail, particularly given he's in the room. I'll let him do the lion's share of the talking from here going forward. And I'll hand over to Hugo now to talk us through exactly what the RAS does for ratepayers.
Thanks, Scott. The RAS is in some ways complex and in other ways it's simple, but I think the best way to help people understand is to ask questions as we're going through the slides. So we've got a set of slides which set out the rationale behind setting up the RAS in the first place, the process we're going through, and then talk more specifically about the detail of the RAS itself. So please stop me and ask questions. I do tend to get on a roll. I don't sort of lose you while I'm doing that. As I mentioned, we've been on the case for the RAS for a very long time now. We were first engaged by a group of councils back in about 2018 with a specific focus on rates postponement, and that was because those councils acknowledged that there's an ageing demographic, people are getting older, they're moving from the workforce into retirement, and their incomes are becoming fixed and lower. At the same time, rates have been increasing well above inflation, and despite the fact that rates capping is coming, the impost on ratepayers and property owners is only going to continue to increase because there's been a massive underinvestment in infrastructure, and someone's got to pay, and there'll be property owners that will pay either through rates or water charges or other charges. So that was the initial sort of rationale behind the RAS, and as we looked at it, we realised that it had to be off balance sheet, so we came up with a structure that achieved the off balance sheet arrangements for councils, and then we developed the structure, and as we developed the structure, we realised there were other opportunities that the RAS could be applied to. And so it's not just about rates postponement, it's these other products that we've focused on. Impact loans, which are effectively loans to property owners to invest in their properties, which provide private benefit to the property owner, but also have public benefit spin-offs as well. And then also deferred development contributions, which are effectively converting a development contribution, which is a payment up front to council, to a series of payments over a period of time, which lessens the load on developers up front, and so it doesn't impede development. It enables development to flow. And the RAS essentially, sorry, Councillor Gregory.
In terms of rates, the rate side of it, would this RAS replace our existing rate relief tools, like the ones that we already have, the government rates rebate, the council rates remission for hardship,
and the payment plans and postponements that are already in place for this council?
So no to the first two. So rates it won't impact rates, the rates rebate scheme. Rates remission, I guess, is a different issue. It's about probably it's not postponing rates. It's like meaning what we would be able to do is replace the rates postponement schemes that councils have across the country.
So you're telling me it would replace it? We wouldn't have those available?
No, it would replace rates postponement, not rates rebate, not rates remission. But it may impact the way councils want to deal with rates remission. They may...
Because that's a GDC policy, is our remission policy is what we... So once you have other tools in place, you might change your remission policy or complement. The analysis that's been done by Treasury suggests that that scheme's not very well targeted. So there's possibly a lot of ratepayers that are receiving rates rebate, probably may be that in time that could be refocused towards people that really, really need the rates rebate, and others would be instead referred to a rates postponement scheme. But at this stage, we've got to do with rates rebate.
And can I also just add that it is LGNZ's policy to continue to champion the rates rebate scheme. And obviously last year, the coalition government did increase the envelope for that rates rebate scheme, but that's a continued policy. So we certainly wouldn't see the RAS replacing the rates rebate scheme.
So in a nutshell, the RAS addresses or helps to address ratepayer affordability. It provides flexibility to ratepayers as to when they pay local authority charges, and it does that with very competitive financing rates. So the expectation is that the RAS will be able to provide loans to ratepayers at around 2 to 2.5% below the standard floating mortgage rate. So it'd be very attractive financing rates. We were involved in setting up the LGFA back in 2011, and we got a lot of really good insights, setting the structure itself and also the process that we went through, setting up the LGFA. And we figured it's been such a success that we'll basically run with the same model for the RAS. And so the structure is virtually identical to LGFA, and the process that we're following is very similar in the sense that we set up stage gates so that investment we don't get ahead of ourselves. We identify different junctures in the process and allow stakeholders to make decisions at those different junctures as we work through the process. As Scott said, we're actually at stage 4 of what we're hoping will be a 5-stage process. And we're at the point now where to move forward, we need the approval from 3 key stakeholders, being local government, central government and LGFA. We've got very strong support from local government and LGFA, and central government has come to us and said, well, you've got the funding councils, which represent a big chunk of the sector, but what we want to know is the sector that's why we're here today, and we want to be able to go back to the minister and give him feedback, direct feedback on the sector. So what we're asking for is, ideally, it's a formal response from elected members. It doesn't commit councils at this stage, but obviously we want a really high quality response. So we're seeking a resolution from councils, and we've approached around 10 councils to do that. So we've got the original 8 councils who are providing the funding, and we've approached another 10, although we're meeting with Whakatane on Wednesday next week, and I think Rotorua, Poriki, Kawerau and Thames Valley are also attending that. So we may end up killing more than one bird with that stone next week. So we're really trying to demonstrate to the Minister that this is not just the larger funding councils, it's got widespread appeal to the sector itself. And so there's a paper, I understand, that's been put forward to council that you'll be considering later on. Just running through the actual products themselves. first one we've got there is deferred DCs. DCs are a significant source of revenue for councils. In 2026 annual plans indicated that around 700 million should be raised from DCs nationally. That excludes 200 million from windshield agencies. So on the like basis, it's actually close to 100 million nationally.
Sorry, what's the DC?
Oh, sorry, development contribution. So if a developer wants to subdivide a property, for example, or undertake some development on the property, that will in time put a larger sort of drain on the infrastructure that's in place. So there's a charge that's made to the development and typically it's between $30,000, but can be $30,000, but it can be significantly higher. And it's an upfront payment, so it's quite a big impost on the developer. What the deferred DC does, convert that into a levy, so it's over 30 years. So whoever owns that property over the 30 years pays the levy. It's not paid upfront.
Distributed payments.
The government's announced what they're calling the development levy scheme or system, which is an evolution of the development contribution arrangements. And the expectation is that through that new reform, the development levies will enable councils to charge more than what they currently charge. So that 900 million that's expected in 2026 could easily grow to be over $1 billion in the short term, which is just more than impost on developers. So there's been a big drive to ensure that we get development so that we get more balance in the supply of housing. But at the same time, we're pushing all the costs onto developers. So this is intended to help spread the load on developers going forward. What will happen, and this is the case with all these products, is that the local authorities kept whole at all times. So what the local authority could do is decide to not charge a development contribution up front and instead spread it out over a 30-year period. But that means that the cash is not available for the council to do the investment that it needs to do. So what the RES does is the RES will make a payment of the development contribution to the council. So the council gets the money up front. It will then have the ability to impose a levy on the property for the next 30 years. Sorry, you got a question?
No, I'm just trying to comprehend this at the speed with which you're putting
it.
Yeah,
and I'm sorry, it's a lot to absorb. We've been living and breathing it for years, but there is a lot to sort of take in. There's no compulsion on the developer to go with a development levy rather than a development contribution. You can pay the development contribution instead. It's an optional choice for the developer, and the owner of the property can choose to repay the outstanding development levies at any time as well. So all else equal, you'd expect that the headline price of the property would be lower because the new property owner's got to pay this levy going forward. And so the RES will calculate that on a real-time basis, and the value of that will be available, at all times. So when you're doing the transaction buying a property, you can look on the RES website and see what the value of the outstanding development contributions will be.
Because the debt sits with the land, not with the owner. That's the critical difference here. One of the critical differences.
Can
I just ask, for me, you're sort of getting people more and more in debt at the moment. When someone doesn't pay their rates, it's near impossible to take their property. Under this system, if they're borrowing money, it makes it easier for you to take their properties. For me, there's a high chance there's going to be a lot of bad debtors because they're borrowing money to pay debt. There's going to be a high rate of bad debtors. It's not like someone's borrowing money to buy a house or something like that.
Question. It's debt. You can't get away from it. There's no doubt it's debt. I guess the different products have different sort of issues. So development contributions or deferred development contributions, that's a charge that happens every So it's not like a debt's building up, it's just that you've got a requirement to pay. It's like an addition to your rates bill. So if you own the property that year, you're required to pay your rates and you're required to pay that development levy on that year. So it's just a higher impost. And when you buy the property, it'll be completely transparent that that's what you're buying. Those are the charges that you need to pay. And the same thing with impact loans as well. With rates postponement, that's different because that's targeted at retired people essentially that have equity in their homes, and they the rates bill, outstanding rates will increase over time. When the property is sold, the proceeds, the outstanding principal and interest will be paid out of the proceeds from the sale of the property. And there'll be criteria that means you've got to have at least 20% equity in the property when you're postponing your rates. So you've got that buffer in place over time. We've done a lot of analysis around the risk of actually getting into jeopardy over time. If you take that rates postponement, and it's an extreme situation where you ever find yourself in, assuming that noting that there's been nominal price increases in property over 7% in the last 50, 60 years. And we're not thinking that's going to get everyone out of jail, it's come off. But there's going to be there's always inherently some sort of nominal price inflation as well, which the price of the house increases, but the price of the debt doesn't. The debt's only got the interest that's compounding on it. But there's no compulsion. It's optional for the ratepayer.
And can I just add, when we started designing this, we were very mindful that we didn't want to obviously cause any concerns and have people kind of take on debt that they obviously couldn't afford. But if we take development contributions, for example, if someone's buying a property and let's say that property is valued at say 600,000 and they've got a mortgage of 550,000, or they need to borrow 550,000, 50 of that 50,000 might be a development contribution. So actually what they're then borrowing from the bank is say 500,000 at a higher interest rate. The component that would otherwise be borrowed through the bank with 50,000 would go through the RAS. It's actually at a cheaper interest rate. So it's actually saving them money on that component. So it's actually not necessarily encouraging them to take more debt. It's actually more efficient and effective finance.
I'll just do supplementary with Teddy and then come to Jeremy.
You've probably got quite a few questions in relation to this. One, tap into your KiwiSaver under hardship, but are they going to say, no, you can get a loan, you can't tap into this because you've got the option to get a loan to pay your rates? So you no longer have the availability for this, tap into it for hardship. There's other questions like if the bank's got a loan over the property, who gets first dibs? Our loan or the bank's loans? So to me, there's questions.
On the rates postponement, the criteria includes you've got to be 55 plus to qualify. So if it was a hardship, we would expect that to be covered under a rates remission scheme rather than under the RAS itself. In terms of the ranking in relation to the proceeds of the property, the RAS ranks ahead of a first mortgage, so it gets paid first in the sale of the property. Just like a loan does as well. If there's an outstanding rates bill and sold,
Councillor Muir.
Take it a purchaser who has the equity will be able to pay off the RAS contribution component and not have the charges.
The property owner, what they do, they could decide to pay the levy, or they could choose to pay it off. If they've got debt, they're probably better off to leave it and pay it off rather than to pay the levy on an annual basis rather than pay it off because it'll be cheaper than what they.
Yeah. Councillor Tibble.
So this financing mechanism that's meant to ease the burden for ratepayers, the methodology of how this product is put together, where is this present in another system where you can understand its effects? Because, yeah, thank you.
So We'll come to it. But when we started, we were looking at rates postponement specifically, and we looked for precedents around the world and came across a great example in British Columbia and Canada. BC's got 5 million people. They've got a property tax system that's equivalent to the rates system here in New Zealand. So they have, I think the average property taxes there are about $4,000. This year it's about $3,500, so very, very close. Their scheme's been running for over 30 years, and they, when we first looked at it in 2016, they had 670 million in loans outstanding, and in the 8 years through to 2024, it had grown to 2.7 billion, so quadrupled in the timeframes. And there's a Kiwi scheme, and she's been really, really helpful with her a lot. And she asked me the question, like, what's been behind the huge growth? And she said it's two things. Firstly, the demographic shift that all Western countries and a lot of other major countries around the world are experiencing. So, just the ageing population. But then secondly, they went from a legacy system where it was a paper-based application process where people would need to go and sit at the council office, bring various forms of ID, a sort of 3-hour type exercise. And now they've moved to a paperless application process, which is online. It takes 20 to 30 minutes to run through. And it's just removed all the friction with applications. And so she just said those two things have just, enabled people to apply, and there's a lot more people who want to make use of the scheme itself.
Supplementary, can you provide a website to be able to look at that, please? The system?
Sure, absolutely. It'll be sure.
Councillor Foster and then Councillor Alder.
Thank you. Is there any examples of this being expanded around the, examples around the world where it's done with other different council activities, presenting or other different things to do with property?
We haven't come across it. We've probably looked that much harder than when once we found the Columbia example. One thing that they did note is that envious of the situation we're in, because they've got this legacy scheme, whereas we're starting with a blank sheet of paper, and they said, the fact that it can do PCs and what we call the impact loans, they see that as a potentially a natural evolution of the scheme. Where we've got to is, we started with rates postponement. We realised that you need scale to make it work, and British Columbia's got the benefit of having scale already. If we were sitting with rates postponement, it would take too long to get scale to make the economics stack up. But by being able to do DCs and impact loans in there, we can get the balance sheet to the size that we need to in a reasonable space of time to make it work. So it actually benefits us by having multiple products rather than just having the one product.
So this is basically moving the cost away from the developer onto the actual owners of the property, onto the property title.
Deferred DCs? Yeah, well, I mean, what would happen today is that the developer would pay the $30,000 up front, and then they'd make sure they got the $30,000 when they sold the property. What we expect will happen in practice is the developer will just defer the DC, and they won't need that $30,000 up front. So the property price should come down, and that's what
should come down.
The buyer's looking at a property then that's got a 50,000 DC charge on it. So that's their negotiation. The seller's saying, I want that plus the 30,000, they're not going to buy it.
So, I mean, for example, on the website, we'd expect that there would, it'll be noted on the council rating information database and on the LIM, so it'll be really clear that there's a rate, a levy that's going to be charged by the RAS. There will be an ability to go to the RAS website to see exactly what amount is outstanding. So it'll be very transparent. It will require a change in the way the conveyancing system works. So the expectation is that there will be education for conveyancing lawyers, and the standard forms and District Law Society forms will be changed to ensure that those conveyancing lawyers highlight to a acquirers of properties that there's this amount outstanding, and they'll show them what the numbers are. So the market's efficient enough for it to be self-completed, I'm not sure, but information will be available for that. Sorry.
Oh, Colin, thank you.
A couple of questions. Could you please outline the implications of jointly and several guarantees as it applies to the council and the worst case scenario?
It's absolutely fundamental to this. We've engaged with the rating agencies to understand what the credit rating is we can get for the RAS, because that's critical to be able to raise financing at low rates. And the joint and several guarantee is critical to getting the credit rating that we need. This is once again based on the LGFA model, so all borrowers from LGFA have signed up to a joint and several guarantee. And
right now, our council has signed up to the joint and several borrower.
And this would be, what's envisaged, this will be the same form. The only difference will be that the exposure that individual councils will have will be in proportion to the ratepayers' use of the RAS. So if GDC was to sign up and its ratepayers, represented 1% of the RAS borrowings, that would be the exposure if the guarantee was called jointly. And then but the expectation is it's such a remote outcome that the joint and several guarantee would ever be called. Firstly, the loans are to individual ratepayers. So the expectation is over time there could be 150,000 ratepayers spread across New Zealand. There's security on each of those properties. So firstly, those ratepayers have got to not pay. And then there's a rectification process that the RAS will go through to ensure it does get repaid, which is worst case scenario, it's ultimately selling the property to get repaid. So, and the RAS ranks ahead of any mortgage. So the RAS gets the money first out of the property. So the property would have to be worthless for the RAS not to get repaid. So that's the first thing that's got to happen. Then there's, I guess, a risk that there's some sort of event which means that the RAS can't, borrow anymore. But the RAS will be supported by a standby facility from central government for 10% of the loan book, and a standby facility from LGFA for 15%. So 25% of its loans will be covered by those standby facilities from government and LGFA.
I feel this has really been rushed on us. The last and detailed document arrived yesterday morning. Despite that, I've been able to take it to 10 individual people, ranging from lawyers to old age pensioners, and not one supported it. So I see this thing as...
We're not debating right now. We're not debating, we're still
asking questions?
We're still in the middle of a presentation.
So can I first debate? Thank you.
And do acknowledge that this has been rushed on you, although we have been working on it for years and years and years. So the second...
Just on that point, the reason why it has been rushed, it has been worked on for years. The Minister asked to an update on the business case that took through to almost the end of last year, and the crew thought it was good to go, but DIA said, hey, listen, outside of the core councils, which represent about 60 to 7% of the rate holder, who else supports it council-wise? And so the team are going around the different councils to see, in principle, reports, and there's 2 different recommendations in here and recommendation paper. So
I'll get to that.
DIA is asking just the broader scope of recommendation to the Minister.
And the Minister's agreed to meet with the steering group sometime in February, and we realise it's a task to get a response from councils, but we try to get a response from councils so that when we get that meeting, we can pass on the feedback directly to the Minister, because it will impact his decision. The second product is what we're calling impact loans. We had an original name which was property improvement loans, but that wasn't exciting enough, so we've gone with impact loans, which stands for investment in modernising properties and achieving community transformation. And what's behind that is, in many ways, it does capture what an impact loan is. It's about improving properties, but by doing that, it actually helps achieve community objectives. And current legislation allows councils to do that already. So there's a number of councils around the country that actually provide loans to ratepayers to do things like put in home insulation, put in heating, put in double glazing. The only problem with that is it's administratively burdensome for councils, and when councils do that, they've got to borrow the money to lend it to ratepayers, and so it's using up councils' current debt capacity to do that. So what the RES would do would effectively step into the shoes of the council and be able to make loans to ratepayers to do this for approved purposes, so that they can improve their properties and help achieve public benefits. And we've been working really closely with two organisations, Rewiring, Acknowledgement and Buyout, who are very focused on, particularly on efficiency and climate change type issues. And the products that we in the business case are solar panels, home batteries, heat pumps and water heat pumps, which can have real benefits to property owners. And the reason that those organisations are excited is because of the low cost of financing and the long term of those loans. They can be cash flow positive for property owners. So by investing in solar panels, they can save on their electricity bills, and the savings can be used to repay, to pay off the loan that they've made in the first place. The RES would undertake all the administration, and it would be off balance sheet, and the rates will be those really low rates that I talked about, 2 to 2.5% floating mortgage rate. And then the last one is rates postponed. We've really talked about it already, and this is very much about the massive demographic shift that's underway and the cost of living crisis that we've got, and the fact that rates, unfortunately but necessarily, are going to continue to increase above inflation, which is just going to continue to pinch that demographic of retirees that have got their houses, often with some equity in the house, but they just don't have the income to pay rates, and by going to defer rates, it just means that they can enjoy a better quality of life in retirement. So in terms of what is the RAS and how it works, just got a really sort of high level diagram here. The RAS would be a new entity. It's a CCO, which is like the LGFA. When that was established, it was a new entity. It will be owned by local authorities, government and LGFA, and the expectation is that government will take 20%, LGFA will take 20%, and the rest of it would be owned by local authorities. But it wouldn't have any discretion. It's not going to suddenly decide that it's going to make home loans, home loans or car loans, for example. The products that the RAS provides will be approved by council and RAS itself and by government. So it's very much going to stay in its lane, which is the products that we've talked about. All local authorities will be able to use RAS. It's intended to be a national service available to everyone. But to do so, you have to join as a member, which means have some requirements, which will be facilitating origination of loans. So having a link on the council's website, which enables ratepayers to apply to get approved. There will need to be information sharing between councils and the RAS itself, things like rating information, etc. And then the security requirements is signing up to that joint and separate guarantee, which is very much in line with what the LGFA's security structure is as well. And the LGFA is going to have a critical role to play with the RAS. It will be providing equity, it will invest in the preference shares to ensure that the capital base is appropriate, and it will be providing as well. In addition, it will be doing all the treasury management. And the thinking behind that is that LGFA is a specialist in this area. That's what its job is, to run the more treasury arrangements, and there's no reason for the RAS to replicate that. So it will have arm's length contractual arrangement with the LGFA to provide those services. And just sort of reiterating how it works in practice, the RAS has the ability to levy a ratepayer to get repaid. Local authorities would opt in, so local authorities have to decide which products it will provide. We generally, across the board, local authorities have indicated that rates postponement and deferred DCs are attractive. There seems to be a few sitting on the fence about impact loans, and that comes back to a philosophical issue in the sense that they're saying, well, we need to stick to our knitting. You know, we're not in the business of providing loans to ratepayers to improve their properties. I think we'll come back to individual councils because local councils are really enthusiastic about the ability to actually provide these loans to support the ratepayers. So what happens in practice is the ratepayer would go to the website, apply to the RAS. The RAS would consider the application. If it approves the application, in the case of a deferred DC or a rates postponement, the RAS would then make payment on behalf of the ratepayer to the local authority, so the local authority is kept whole, and then in due course it would levy the ratepayer to ensure it's paid. The difference with deferred DCs is that the RAS would be making payment to the supplier of the product, so solar panels for example, and it would do that once the ratepayer had confirmed that they were the installation and product, and that's when that would happen.
Councillor Telfer.
So is there any, would be any requirement to have to pay the principal back? Like, could this be treated like an interest-only loan so it carries on against the title?
So in the case of deferred DCs and loans, there would be a payment mortgage, so there would be a principal and interest component in the levy that's charged over time. With rates postponement, that's a bullet one-off payment on sale of the property. So, depending on how long the rate is postponed for, that total would be repaid.
The sale of the property.
So yeah, interest only is not an option under this.
So it's almost a way of using some of your equity in the property over time.
That's right, yeah. So
this was a question, you're saying a 2% interest charge, is that going to be conditional? I mean, if interest rates increase, is the 2% going to increase, or is it relevant to the percentage that's our interest rates are out at the moment?
It will be market rates, but the rates will be 2 to 2.5% below.
2% below, yeah, always guaranteed.
That's right, yeah. The base rates are 5%, then it'll be 5% plus whatever the margin is that the RAS needs to borrow at.
Floating or fixed?
Floating.
Thompson.
So will there be will it work like banks where there's penalties or late payments and
there'll be,
is that going to work?
If there was a non-payment, then there'll be costs would need to be covered. It's not intended that there'll be penalties. It's a service provided on behalf of local authorities to its ratepayers. It's to help ratepayers. It's not to make a profit.
It's not a commercial exercise, but we'll make a profit for shareholders.
We'll make a surplus, but it's not like a bank which is purely profit focused. It's a shared service.
You mentioned at the start the idea is to make a profit for shareholders. That's your driver to make a profit.
It's there to make an appropriate return to shareholders. So ultimately it'll be up to the shareholders to decide. Once a surplus is made, it'll be up to the shareholders to decide what sort of return to take, and whether to use that surplus to reduce the margin that ratepayers pay for the loans.
Because the shareholders are not, it's the government, local authorities, LG.
FA.
Yeah. It's not shareholders like people in the stock market.
Yeah, correct.
So you stated 6% and then a quadrupling of your original asset. So that's like, it was 24% return on your original investment, or what's the?
So that was on the LGFA. So that's just what LGFA returned to its shareholders. So its book equity has increased from 25 million to probably close to 150 million now. So that's the quadrupling in the equity value. It has paid a cash dividend to the 33 shareholders. That's on top of the the hundreds of millions of margin savings that the local authorities receive from the LGFA.
Can I just add, so when we first started thinking about this, we were very clear that this needed to have, first and foremost, public benefit. It wasn't a commercial opportunity. We have had non-councils kind of approach us to talk about potentially getting involved, and we're very clear that the shareholding needs to be central government, local government, so it retains that public benefit. And at the end of the day, it's there to provide a public service. Obviously, though, councils are putting in money that they've raised through their community, and so therefore there is the potential to have that return on investment, but that's not the driver. There is potentially a point in time where the RAS board, which would be appointed by the shareholders, there is a point in time where potentially the RAS obviously will break even and actually provide a return. At that point, the decision could be made by the board to actually increase the savings and pass that on. So actually go, well, we don't need to make profit. We don't need to necessarily put a return back or as large a return, and actually could in fact increase the margin that it passes on. So again, as I said, just want to emphasise the whole idea of this was to ensure that it had public benefit. Wasn't set up to be a commercial entity.
So multiple stakeholders have been involved in the process. So we talked about local government New Zealand taking leadership on this. Local LGNZ led on the LGFA, and they're doing the same thing with RAS. We've got the 8 funding councils, so that's Auckland, Hamilton, Hutt, New Plymouth, Palmerston North, Queenstown, Tauranga and Wellington. LGFA, as we talked about, is a huge supporter as well. Rewiring, Aotearoa and ICA are on the steering group. And then there's been a strategic advisory group that's been formed at the request of the Minister, which includes Nick Smith, who is the ex-Minister and now Mayor of Telson, Cameron Baggery, the economist, and Stuart Henderson, who's an ex-PwC partner. And we've worked with that group over 3 or 4 months. Initially they were sceptical, but they've done a complete about-face, and they're very enthusiastic supporters of the RAS now as well, which is great. Nick Smith has been in contact with the Minister and provided that advice to him. And he has let us know that he's continuing to be a champion and lead a roadshow around the sector over the next few months as well. The IA has been involved over the last 6 months in the development of the business case, plus Treasury, MHUD and MB, and Leases and Terrace Partners has been the lead financial advisor. PwC has been on accounting and tax and IT, and Simpson Greenson has been doing the legal work as well. It's been a really, really intense process. There's been 11 sort of work streams, and we've created a work stream group for those 11 work streams, and representatives from the funding councils have led those work streams. So we've got executives from each of those councils that have been involved in each of the work streams. So we've had a lot of input from them, which has resulted in the structure that we've got, which is in the business case, which has been forwarded to the Minister. I'm not sure if you've seen a copy of that business case, but it runs to 180 pages, and then I think there's another 300 or 400 of appendices that are attached as well. So it's a really comprehensive business case. It's definitely bedtime reading. Just sort of moving on to the financial analysis. And this sort of goes to the question around what happens with the surplus. And fundamentally, the RAS has got to be able to wash its face. It can't be a cost centre for councils. It needs to be able to stand on its own feet. And the RAS will charge a net interest margin or achieve a net interest margin of 1%. So what that is, it'll raise its financing at, say, at 3.5%, and charge ratepayers 4.5%, and it'll take the 1% margin to cover its costs. And so for every 100 million in loans, it'll make $1 million to cover its costs. And we estimate that its operating costs will be around 6 to 7 million. So break even, it's got 700 million. And so that's what I meant before, having multiple products helps us to that break-even position. Obviously, as soon as you get over that 700 million, it's starting to make a profit. And it's at that point, it's a decision for the board and the shareholders what you want to do to shareholders. So we think there's, shareholders should get a return. They're taking risk and they deserve to get a return. But, does that become a super return when, if the balance sheet grows to, to say $2 billion, and, what do you do with that extra money that's been dropping through the bottom line? That $13 million, does that all go back to shareholders, or is that just used to reduce the margin to ratepayers? The assumptions in the business case are considered to be conservative. We think they're conservative. The steering group thinks they're conservative, and so does the strategic advisory group. For example, with rates postponement, at the moment, British Columbia, 3.9% of households use rates postponement. The assumption we've got is that rates postponement uptake is to 2.8% of households after 15 years. So we don't even get where British Columbia is now within 15 years. So, that's the type of assumption that's in there. Going back to your point about the rush that we've had and further to what Tony said, our expectation was that we, through the funding councils, were able to indicate to the Minister that we had enough support from the sector. But DIA came back and said, well, that's only 8 councils out of 77. We really want to know what the rest of the sector thinks. So we've got a lot of ratepayers are covered by those councils. Scott and LGZ have been talking with a number of councils, including Gisborne, and at the moment we've got a program in Levin yesterday, speaking with Horowhenua District Council, Nelson tomorrow, Whakatane next week. We've got Northern Regional Council the week after with Porirua, so there's just a series of meetings that we're having so that we can hopefully get the feedback to the Minister to say this is not just the big funding council, this is a cross-section of the sector that supports the RAS. So that's unfortunately why we've had to really push hard, and unfortunately that means there's been limited time for council. Scott, I don't know if you want to talk to these last slides. I'm happy to keep going.
I think probably just the point to make, which is the point I started with today, we are ideally what we want at this point in time is to get in principle agreement that you see value in the RAS and it provides benefit to ratepayers, and that you would make the RAS available to your ratepayers. We are not, I just want to emphasise, we are not looking for a decision about funding at this point in time. We are expecting the Minister to give us some positive news sooner rather than later. We will then have a challenge to get it into the legislative calendar. Assuming we do get the green light, at some point we will need to raise 30 to 35 million to be able to finish the final design, effectively have operating costs, effectively have revenue, income, effectively have the reserves to be able to operate until the RAS breaks even, so we're not having to come back to councils to ask for further funding. And then obviously that then sets the RAS up. The modelling that we've done says the RAS would break even after 4 years. And so we've been pretty conservative in that, but we are not looking for a decision at the moment on that equity. I will just say though, any money that is put into the RAS, so the funding councils to date and future funding councils, as it was for the funding agency, that becomes shareholding. So you then hold equity. But fundamentally what we're looking for at the moment is in principle agreement that you see value in the RAS and that you would make the RAS available to your ratepayers. Therefore we can go back to the Minister and just highlight that not only we've got the 8 funding councils to date, we've actually got a broader section of the sector who also see value in the RAS.
Just reiterating what Scott said, the Minister to make a decision sometime in late February, early March. We'd ideally like to be able to provide educational support from the other councils when we meet with the Minister sometime in February. So that's the real drive for us at this stage. If the Minister is supportive of Cabinet, if Cabinet was to approve it, then the next steps will be LGFA seeking final approval from shareholders, although Mark notes that the largest shareholders have over 50% of the votes and they can the majority of them are represented on the funding council group at the moment. And then council, we'd need to approach councils to actually start firming up their support. So we're crystallising the discussions that we're having now into genuine form of support, plus raising equity from the sector. So with LGFA, the equity at the outset was 25 million. The expectation is with RAS it will be 30 to 35 million. 40% of that is likely to come from central government and LGFA, and the remainder is likely to come from local authorities.
All good. Nadine, from a staff perspective, so we've got the political side in here. Just before we open the floor, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. I think that, so this is a really clearer approach to managing the constraints that we often have as council and our inability to be able to provide this service for our ratepayers. So in my 15 years looking at the various tools that we've had, I think this is a really good support proposal, and as has been mentioned by Hugo and Scott, this is not about let's go jump in boots and all. This is initially an in-principle support, and we will come back. There's a second stage in there around more detailed information for you, and just outline. So this is a nationally shared council-owned mechanism. You've had all the experts crawling across it, and I do think that it is a very good scheme.
Can I open the floor? Councillor Alder.
Thank you. I'll start where I finished off. I have consulted and had no support. I see it as an admin empire, and I really struggle with it on an ethical level. This is putting a band-aid, the rates payment portion of it, is putting a band-aid on a problem rather than focusing on fixing the problem. Enabling people into more debt is not solving the problem of sustainably, affordably funding our local bodies. And it's not helping with the prudent use of funds, which is what I'm here for. This is what should be our focus. Option 2 is offered up to us. I find it coercive. If we don't follow in on this at this point, we will have limited access to RAS products, and the inability to influence final design. What affordability is the key here, and that creating a fluffy blanket, which is what this is suggesting, and LG and Z are contributing to it, is not what we should be doing. We should be tackling the problem head on, which is rates affordability and our spend. Thank you. I'm not supporting it.
I think rates affordability is an issue which we can't get away from. The RAS won't change any pressure on councils. Even in British Columbia, over 4% of households use rates this moment. 96% don't. So there's still 96% of ratepayers that are completely exposed to rates regardless of the level that they're being charged at.
What's the indebted level of their society compared to ours? Radix.
Sorry.
I'm happy to move this. I think it's going to be great. It'll have great benefit, and we're not committing ourselves to anything at this stage, but we're just giving it support in the interim. And I think, the benefits are there. And to have it all consolidated into one area just makes so much sense. And we're the beneficiaries as well, the local government, New Zealand government, and yeah, so it's not a profit-making exercise. It's here to assist ratepayers. So I'm total support of it. I don't see the problem.
Councillor Gregory and then Councillor Muir.
Thank you. I spent a lot of time reading this because it was really complicated, and my first thoughts were someone's robbing Peter to pay Paul. But what it actually does, if my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it doesn't, it sort of helps with short-term affordability, but it doesn't make the rates any cheaper, and it just changes when and how people pay their rates. But as a council, I feel that we just need to be clear about the difference between real relief and deferred debt, particularly for our vulnerable households in our region. So whilst I have a degree of liking it, I see the shareholders do well, I see the council does well, I see the ratepayers don't do well. And I see my role as representing ratepayers. So that's all I'd like to say at this point.
Just briefly, the ratepayers will benefit from having cheaper finance, but have access to, for example, impact loans. If you don't have a mortgage, it's very hard to get an impact loan from a bank. If you're over 65, it's almost impossible to get a loan from a bank. You might want to put solar on your house that you're going to live in for the next 30 years until you pass away. These sorts of funds enable those things to happen, and in Tairawhiti, the equity lens that this brings is actually disproportionately beneficial to this region, in my view.
I'm not a fan of debt.
Can I just, it's completely optional to ratepayer. Ratepayer chooses.
Great. The only way I could support it would be if there are other things were still going alongside it.
Like rates relief, you mean, and remissions? Yes, absolutely.
It makes a lot of sense to me, and so I hope that you do get broad support from the sector as you go around now for this first stage. But I just have a question about that second stage that you have when you have that support. How would that equity? So if the councils that are prepared to put equity in, will that be on a ratepayer number base, or have you thought what's going to be the model for the equity investing?
It'll be up to the councils to decide, what they're prepared to, if they're prepared to invest in, and then how much they're prepared to invest. It won't be related to number of ratepayers, for example, but that might be one way of thinking about it as to what's an appropriate way. One constraint we do have is that no single shareholder can have more than 20%. So while Auckland represents 35% of population-wise, it couldn't take that much in terms of percentage shareholding, so it will be limited to a 20% shareholding. I'm not saying it would take that, but that's probably the only constraint. I know one of the other councils has taken the approach where they've gone, well, we represent sort of 1%, so 1% of the equity sounds like a good number.
And can I just clarify that 20% is to ensure that it's off balance sheet for council, and so therefore it provides that benefit. If it's oversubscribed, and we suspect it will be, at that point we would have to use some sort of pro rata. We want to be inclusive as possible, and as for the LGFA, we want to have as many councils as shareholders as possible. So we certainly wouldn't be excluding anybody. We'd want to do it on a pro rata basis if we're oversubscribed.
Yeah. Councillor Thompson and then Councillor Calvin.
Yeah, for me it's a way easier way for people to borrow money and go more and more into debt. And for me, we've got a lot of more vulnerable people in Gisborne who I can borrow this money and they're gonna jump at it. So I'm sort of against the idea of getting people, especially vulnerable people, more and more into debt. I just don't see loans and debt as, unless you're taking a loan to invest to make a profit, I don't see it as a good thing.
Yes, I mean it is optional, obviously, and there would be a process that they need to go through to apply to and to actually qualify in the first place. So it wouldn't be taking people that are really vulnerable. And come back to it, it's not intended to make a profit off the of ratepayers. It's intended to provide a service to ratepayers, but it needs to make a surplus so that it doesn't require constantly being topped up by shareholders. So it's got to at some point at least break even to be viable.
Councillor Parata and then Councillor Tibble.
I can hear the concerns about exploitation and the concerns about, I suppose, debt being a chain around whānau's necks, but vulnerable whānau already have limited options. That's the problem. And sometimes having a loan is what allows you to get from the bad place you're in to a better place. And having things like this, initiatives like this, provides whānau with safety from being exploited. They're going to get that money one way or another because they're in it. You don't take loans for the sake of taking loans. And the reality is that whānau who need to take a loan, they're not thinking about business initiatives and wanting to make more money from it. They're thinking about, how can I fix this problem with my house? How can I fix this car? How can I get myself into a better situation so I can make better financial choices going forward? But we don't do it. They turn to loan sharks, and those are the ones that are making them pay it back at 30%, or they put it on a credit card, because those are not hard to get. So I hear what Debbie is saying is that it's our responsibility to advocate for the people. It's also our responsibility to make decisions that will allow our whānau to have better options. It's not the only option, but they deserve to have options, and we're the people that can make it happen. And right now all it is in principle, this region supports. And as a result of that, and as a result of representing so many vulnerable whānau, of which are my own, I support.
Firstly, I want to second the paper. I'm very pleased to hear the kōrero today. If we reflect to the public input and petitions from age-friendly Tairawhiti Trust, you would have heard that in their kōrero, it quite clearly leads to the need for support for 65-year-olds to be able to have a finance mechanism that can help them to make improvements on their houses in a space where they can't loan. This particular product enables that. I take the point too that's been raised, that a lot of family may not be able to afford this. But remember that the lien then is on the land if they own the land. So that's what will cover that off. And same as a house, but this is on the land that can be transferred to whoever takes the land thereafter. I think that in the scheme of needing financial mechanisms that can bring relief to ratepayers, it's already been shared that there is an international context by which this particular scheme has a similar demographic to New Zealand, being Vancouver, at 5 million population, and it works in there. Not necessarily the same as us, but still Commonwealth. So I think that for what the paper is asking for us, in principle, to give support to it, I'm very happy with the rest of the paper.
Councillor Telfer and then Councillor Huri.
Yeah, look, I'm in total support of it. I think if you ask any business around the whole country, they would be absolutely thrilled if they can borrow money at what councils can borrow money. This is an option, and I don't see any negatives. People can make. I don't think we need to treat everybody as idiots. They will make decisions on what they want to do and how they're going to do it. This is giving them an opportunity to potentially get the money at 2.5% less than what they're going to get it from the bank. So it's a definite win, and I totally support it.
Councillor Huri, why?
Kia ora. I may have missed it, but the majority of the people on the East Coast are on multiple owned land. So ownership of the land is not in their name. And look, I worked for our tribe in housing for nearly 30 years. And there's been a lot of products that have come out where I've got excited about, because I am excited about the opportunity to have insulation done, solar energy and heating, because those things are not readily available to our people, especially those living on the East Coast. And there are benefits, because if your house is warm, then you're healthy, your people are healthier, so you get the return on investment in a different way. But I'm already starting to hear that the security has taken over the land. And secondly, it would have been good if you had someone like, not only the commercial side, but someone like Salvation Army or a non-profit organisation that could have evidenced that there are benefits to our already vulnerable people, and what the return on the investment is in other ways. Like we know that insulation, if your home is insulated, kids are in school more, you're healthier, things like that. But I am, okay, the East Coast just represents a very small population of the wider Tairawhiti region. But how, because like many government products that are good for the rest of the world, rest of New Zealand, our people never seem to fit the criteria. And is it just an automatic loan, or do you have to have a clear credit history? What sort of, I mean, I know that's nuts and bolts stuff, but the devil is always in the detail, and that's been my experience for many housing products that have become available through government and local government. So on the face of it, yep, it sounds really, there's some good things in it, but what does it look like in reality for many of our Māori communities?
Thank you for that.
The nuts and bolts will be addressed at the next iteration of this. This is just an in principle paper at this point.
But that feedback will be taken into
Absolutely.
account.
Yeah, like example, multiple ownership, how does that work?
But that is a concern of what I'm hearing from the councils that have spoken so far, is that we're taking, like, our people are vulnerable enough. So have you considered getting maybe a CHIP or maybe Salvation Army or a budget advisory service to have a look at this proposal as well, to confirm or evidence that this actually does help low-income, vulnerable families?
And that is the feedback being taken back to the Minister. That's why he's asking a bit of stuff from councils, to hear exactly what you just referred to.
Yeah, that's right. And in short, we haven't done that yet, no. But we'll take it on board.
Thank you for that. Okay, I am going to ask anyone that have not spoken, now is your time, otherwise I'm going to wrap it up. And quickly, we're running out of time.
I've just been Googling the comparison between debt in New Zealand versus Canada. Canada's debt is way higher. It is amongst the highest in the world.
Thank you for that. Okay, anything you wanted to add? Nothing? I've just realised that it's 12:30. We started later today. I thought it is quite late. Thank you, Hugo, for your input. I have a mover and I forgot who moved it. Councillor Foster, seconded and Councillor Tibber. All in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Agree.
Aye.
Carried.
Yep, please.
Thank you. Hey, thank you for that. Thank you, Scott, for tuning in today. And good luck as you move around the country, because I do know it is rushed for all of you as well. You're just doing what the Minister asked. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Anita.
Thank you, appreciate your time.
Yeah. Okay, what I'm just seeing we are moving quite slowly today. So just stand up, do a little stretch, because I'm not going to release anyone nowhere anytime soon. Page 46.
So this is another paper to seek to support Onepoto Trust to progress a for water storage scheme at the Tairawhiti Baird site. It's not a commercial corporation, something equivalent to support the state. So I'll take the paper as read, and if there are any questions, Tony is looking through the detail on the screen.
Okay. You guys remember we went for a visit. You remember that? Yeah.
That's part of this. Councillor Gregory and then Councillor Ria.
Oh, I think this is very exciting. I'm very happy to move this support in principle. Thanks.
I'm just sorry, because I didn't go on the haerenga. Is it the Pauarua Dam northeast of Ngati? Is it the location of it? Is it up there, Lake Bipungairi area?
No.
Sorry?
Patatahi on Tangihanga Station.
At Patatahi? Okay.
Northwest.
I just, I only have just 2 questions. There might not even be questions, just to flag. Will assessments of environmental impacts and also cultural impacts for both immediate and surrounding land and possible connected water bodies feature as a part of the business case?
I actually cannot answer that. That is the mahi that Onepoto Trust are doing, and they are pursuing the fast track process for consenting, which has an entirely different set of rules and regulations, basically. So I actually can't answer that, Councillor.
I'd like to...
I can find out for you.
Yeah, I'd like to just flag that, maybe recommend it to them, but also I would like to second, I support the paper as well.
My gut feeling is that the absolute basic for any resource consent application, the absolute bare minimum would include no minister is going to support this if that was not. Yeah. Yeah. Yep, you go.
Absolutely, so the fast track approvals bill, even though its configuration looks quite different to the standard resource consent process, the front end requirements are very, very, very in depth in terms of the environmental impact assessment, as well as your effects on criminal values, including pretty in-depth consultation requirements. There have been some recent amendments, but they're still there, and yeah, full confidence that will be the case.
Thank you. Second.
Councillor Gibson and then Councillor Parata.
I'm really supportive of this paper. Water is a real key issue for us in Tairawhiti. This will allow orcharding and higher value orcharding rather than cropping, which creates more jobs and lower environmental impacts. I think that's a good thing. I do have one point that I will stress, and then after that I'll be quiet. Oftentimes these water storage projects, and I have experience in this in our whānau as trustees on Terrace Station and also with the Ruatani water storage project, they often get held up as a silver bullet to our problems. They're big fixes and they often get pushed out over time, and our community needs water storage in the short term as well as the long term. So I would like to just implore the council to continue to consent smaller water storage projects across our region and not wait for the big silver bullet, if that's okay. That's all I've got to say on that one.
Through the Chair, we are definitely aware of that, and this is macro. There are other micro schemes, and we will continue to process those and also help develop other ones that are probably impacting soon.
I'm just going to put some, pull some rank here. Are you okay moving forward if I run a little bit more standing over this? We cannot all speak on every issue. If it's a controversial issue, by all means, I'm going to allow you. So I've now had 3 people speak in support. Yes, I have had 3. So for the new councillors, how it works, usually we allow 3 people to speak in a certain way, then I will ask for the opposite 3, and then I'll put it to, if you really, really want to speak, I never ever stop anyone from speaking. I'm very, very generous, but I feel we need to pick up pace, otherwise we're going to be here at 10 p.m. So I am going to ask now, is there anyone that wants to speak against this proposal?
I just had a comment on, so when I looked at this, I thought, is this the best place for water storage? And in supporting this, will it limit possible funding for other proposals, but then I also thought, if you're looking around, where's the best place? It's going to drag on. These guys are action, that they've front-footed it, they've got things going, and we need water storage now, so yeah, no, I'm in support rather than talk about stuff and no doing for ages.
I'm going to give it 10 more seconds. I don't want anyone that feel that they wanted to say something. I have a mover in Councillor Gregory. I have a seconder in Councillor Ria. I'm going to put it all in favour. Aye. Contrary, carried. Thanks. Thank you, Connie. Thank you. Okay, councillors, I'm going to take you to Shane. Are you going to join us? Page 53. We are looking at the plan change 6, and you will see that there was some feedback and staff just wants to make sure everything is tidied up. So they will talk to us. Welcome, Jocelyn. Welcome, Shane. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Plan change 6 is something that the council had focus on for us last year, and I thought it was an opportunity, given the plan stop legislation occurred. We have been affected by that, and also we had the opportunity to look at the bills that were released in early December last year. And in looking at those, because there are some provisions that are being put in place that actually are going to come into effect as soon as royal assent is given, which, if everything goes according to plan, will be about July or August this year, then the consenting team will be unable to look at some of the provisions that we had agreed, the council and the TRNP committee had agreed were necessary to create good living environments in some of the more medium density development that we're actually putting in place through Plan Change 6. So what occurred here was the plan change, I'm kind of between, most councillors know about Plan Change 6 because they looked at it, and there are some new councillors that don't know too much about it, so I put a bit of information in about how it was developed. What it ended up doing was we had an economic assessment that said for Tairawhiti we need to have medium density development at quite high levels, and the rules that were put in place, particularly the rule in the medium density residential zone, medium MZ3, actually allows for housing developments down to 100 square metres in site area and a number of them on a site. So what I proposed here is that because of the changes the government have made, is to recommend introducing a limit on the number that can be in one conjoined development, because one of the rules that the consents team won't be able to apply during the transition phase, which is about 3 years from royal assent, will be those that relate to outdoor living, outlook space, and the types of mechanisms we put in place to ensure people who live in relatively high density development still have an amenity space there. And what we're proposing here is something that may mitigate against getting developments that are less than ideal. Jumping to the plan change exemption, we applied for an exemption for Plan Change 6 back in September last year. Since then, we've had 2 formal approaches from MFE asking for further feedback. I emailed them yesterday and asked where it was at, and they said that it is with Minister Bishop now, so he has advice, and so we would hope to hear in the very near future.
I'm talking to him in 2:45.
Yes, so we hope that that is positive, and at that stage we would then be able to initiate. We've been preparing since that time to actually notify the plan change in early March this year, so it'll give us that period of time to do it. The additional rules that I've suggested go in are those relating to public notification. A type of rule that many plans have, and what it does is for minor non-compliances, consents teams often struggle and have to write quite long reports for something that is really quite minor. So what I'm recommending here is that rules are put in place in all of the residential zones or all of the zones that allow residential activity, that if you have less than a 5% non-compliance, then that still requires a consent, because there might be times when that may be an issue, but it would not be publicly notified or limited notified. And what that does is it doesn't take away the requirement to have a consent, but it gives the developer good certainty that they won't have to go and get neighbours' consent or have a public notification process, so they have relatively good certainty that they'll get a consent in a relatively short period of time. And the last thing I'll note is we haven't asked the Ministry for the Environment in giving their advice to Minister Bishop to make any changes at this point, because we didn't want to put anything in that would actually delay that process. So if we got approval, what we would do, and Council approved these recommendations, we would go to the Ministry for the Environment and say, is there some way that we could have these included in what you have approved for us? If they said no, we would need to say, okay, the recommendation to Council would be we carry on with it as it is, and we would make submission ourselves, as all councils do, to plan changes, and actually submit suggesting that these conditions, that these new conditions go in.
Okay, I'm going to open the floor. It looks quite straightforward to me, but we will move. It's always famous last words. Councillor Ria.
Kia ora. As I was reading this, I was thinking about our commissioners, Alan Matheson and Sarah Stevenson, and thinking about just the technical expertise that they brought to the table every time we discussed these types of TRMP things. You know, they massaged and explained us through so many details. And so I know right now I have a good sense of what this is saying, but for others it may be like reading a different language. So really missing their presence in this space to give their expert advice in regards to the TRMP. Seeing as the main part of it was in regards to medium density residential zone, I just had a couple of questions. So they're just like plain English questions for plain answers, so that just to get a bit more understanding. And it really was with the proposed change in this paragraph, and the paragraph is point 22, page 59, point 22. What would that now mean for areas we identified as medium density zones when we were working in the TRMP? Would it mean smaller lots or more houses within the zone? And without this change that you're proposing, and in keeping with the status quo as recommended by the TRMP initially, does that still fall within new legislation? So it's those two questions.
It is in keeping with the advice and the direction that the TRMP committee gave early on in the place, that balanced approach to not going too far and providing for the type of housing we need, but also recognising that we are a rural community in terms of not a metropolitan city. And so the type of rule that's here, the one that was imposed, that was recommended and was approved, is medium density, probably at its highest level. And the legislation that's before Parliament at the moment, if it stays the same, it actually will take away some of those protections. And so the suggested change here is that it will bring back some of those protections in another way. I'm not sure in terms of the government policy on how permissive the government want us to be, whether they would be happy with this particular, with the addition. But it was the message certainly that was given by the TRMP committee and the council to make sure that we took a balanced approach to it.
And just the other one, would it mean terms of the proposal, would it mean smaller lots and medium density or more houses and medium density?
It would still provide for the same number of lots at the same size that the rule that was approved would give, but what it would do would be ensure that you didn't have very long blocks without any breaks in them. So you would have multiple dwellings on a site, but you wouldn't be able to have 12 of them all joined together. You would need simply to have a break in it so that it created some open space, and so you still had quite high density development. And it is a really difficult one because some developers might take this rule to the nth degree and apply it fully, and others, you might argue, particularly if it's for the general market, because the government aren't allowing councils to look at actually the provision of open space or outlook, that the market might not like those to buy. People who have a choice of where they might like to live are likely to want to have, particularly in this environment, an area that they can go outside because it's such a great climate. And so there'll be a different application. Some developers will take it to the nth degree and try to make as much money as they can, and also they will provide, I think one of the key things that came out of the economic assessment was that to create homes that are more affordable, the assessment didn't conclude that this would give affordable homes. We still have that struggle, but they would make the homes more affordable to a greater percentage of the population. And that's why it was recommended the rule be put in place. And this really doesn't water it down that much at all. All it does is put in an additional requirement that actually potentially makes things slightly better.
Thank you. I suppose for context for our new councillors, Councillor Wharehinga and I previously were really passionate about advocating for the specifics of density for the sakes of communities like Kaiti and Elgin, so that there were preventative measures that those communities don't turn into places that resemble projects, that there are still community, you know, there's still a balance between accessible amenities and reserves and things like that. But thank you for the explanation, and I'm happy to move the paper.
Questions?
Have a comment.
Councillor Huruwai, and then we will come to Councillor Parata. Thank you.
I just want to commend you and Josh for the advocacy work you've done in that space, Aubrey, because the worst offender, in my opinion, has been the Crown with Kainga Ora developments. And despite iwi's conversations with them, they went ahead and built their 3-story high-rise buildings with very little, well, to me, not family-oriented spaces. So, given that government are, in my opinion, the worst offenders, how is this? How are you going to navigate that? Because Aubrey and Josh are right. That's exactly what iwi we're trying to stop as well.
If I can add, just to directly to your question in regards to Kainga Ora, and we've had that conversation before. Kainga Ora actually have a process where they can bypass council in many respects in terms of the homes they build and goes directly to central government. So in situations like that, central government has actually allowed for those types of buildings, and the council hasn't really had an opportunity to have much control over what Kainga Ora does. But Kainga Ora has reached out a few times, and there has been a lot of negative feedback from some of our local communities, especially the Kaiti community, long-term permanent residents, towards Kainga Ora in response to some of the housing. I mean, I'm not totally bagging it. That housing is needed. The housing is needed. But also, how can we have the housing, but also keep in mind long-term residents who have lived in generational housing, who want to keep intact the mana of their community, that they live in and they were brought up in. So yeah, it's a huge conversation, an ongoing conversation, and there are restrictions in place where the council doesn't have the opportunity to actually have a call over some of those issues.
So just a supplementary question. So government still require consent. So I'm just asking, what you're describing, kind order seemed to not be.
Only one type of consent.
Yeah, what you've described, kind order is doing exactly the opposite.
Shane, can you comment?
Thank you.
Yeah. Does this help influence the designs that kind order come in with?
It's a really difficult question because, as I was saying earlier, we did an economic assessment of the nature of the properties in Tairawhiti, in Gisborne City in particular, and looked at what affordability would be. And first thing is, a district plan or land use rules don't make people develop to that density. People will always develop, or developers will develop for the community what they believe they can sell to the community. But they're also part of the community that cannot afford I'm really choosing my words carefully here, the ideal where you have the traditional family home, those sorts of things. The rules we have included in are rules relating to communal housings, particularly in relation to mana whenua, in terms of there being some rules that I haven't referred to in this particular report, but actually provide for communal housing if they are built on a site in a way that has communal living spaces and joint belief and connection between those dwellings and the area that they reside in. So those rules are there to facilitate that as well, but there is a need, and as we were developing Plan Change 6, it became really clear that the ideal that the councillors were talking about probably wasn't possible to have in all locations. There are going to be locations where we need to house people and we need to house them in a way that is economically feasible, and the government have pushed us toward that as well. The answer to the councillor in terms of how does it affect what Kaingoora have built, it really doesn't materially change that at all. They will still be able to build those ones that have got some negative feedback, and they are probably under slightly greater pressure to develop them given this new government and the reduction in the quality that they're asking for. So I don't want to sugarcoat it and say that this is going to fix that. It really can't fix something that the government wants to do.
Just a really quick point in terms of the Kaingoora, with regards to their building consent, they go through an organisation called Consentium, which is actually a government building consent authority. The council does the PIM, but in terms of the land use component and subdivision component, it still has to go through our assessments. So there is that control there, though.
I am so grateful, although I know it's holding us back that we don't have to do the TRMP anymore. I really do love talking about the plans, because it feels like that's the one space that we get to think about what it might look like, what the future might be for us. And so even though it's painful and technical and hard to understand, even when you're being coached through it, it gives us a chance to hope for this future. And I also was one of the ones that have been very vocal about not wanting to create a hood in those socioeconomic areas, and I'm not sorry for that. However, the more we go through this process and the more we really review some of the decisions that we are making and the different types of diverse housing options that potentially can be developed, including the mahi that Kāinga Ora do. I realise that we have such a diverse people here in the region, and many of us sitting at this table are privileged to have options. But there are times in somebody's life where you need to live somewhere that's not that big and not that flash and not that expensive. When you first start out in your life, you need to live somewhere that you don't need to mow lawns because you don't have a lawnmower or a weed eater. When you leave relationships and you've got bugger all. So when I look at the plans and I look at what we're talking about, those are the things I imagine is about how we might help our people to have options and live here and for this to be a good place to be. And the kinds of conversations that we have at this table protect our communities, the ones about kaiti, and it protects them from becoming the things we don't want, but it also enables our community to have the spaces that we need to have, rich lives and humble lives, but you can choose that, and these are the kinds of plans that create that. Also, just want us to be mindful that just in terms of our relationship with central government, that we can definitely be critical about some of the mahi or decisions that happen by central government, but the reality is that it takes all types of contributions to the housing space to address what we have here in Te Tairawhiti, which is a very serious housing shortage. That's it. Thank you for your work. I second it happily.
Okay, any more questions or queries in regards to this paper? We've got a mover in Councillor Ria and a seconded in Councillor Parata. All in favour? Aye. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Dr. So we're going to work for 1:30. Don't look at me with your sad faces. I warn you. Do not give me the puppy eyes. Sustainable future. So this is very important stuff. There's a lot happening in this space. You know that the government is asking, and lots of submissions of local government, of everyone, throughout February and end of February. I want to commend the team because I know that there are some councils that are really going to beg the government for some extensions to timelines. So I'm incredibly proud that we already find ourselves in a position where we've got the bare bones of what we want to talk about. So I'm going to give it to you, Charlotte, to go, and then we'll ask for some feedback from councillors.
And in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all of the
We don't want you to.
Okay, that's good.
Everyone have the opportunity to read it.
Awesome. So I guess today what we're just asking of you is essentially, are you happy with the points we've got there? Is there some tutoring with them or some bits that are missing or ones you want removed? That's it in a nutshell.
So what it comes down to is submissions will be written to government. We'll probably make some verbal submissions too.
Yes, if there's any in particular that you would definitely like us to indicate you'd like to speak to Select Committee on, that would also be good to know, and we can reflect that in the drafts. We can send you the copy of the final written ones as well when we submit them too.
So what I just want to clarify to all councillors, we'll give input today of stuff that we want to see, or that I need everyone to be responsive email-wise. We are not going to meet again as a council to then talk about it. This is it, but once it's ready, we will email it out. So staff will stick to what they have identified as the stuff that will affect the Gisborne District and the Gisborne District Council. So I need everyone to be responsive as well. If we send it out, just say, yes, I agree, or I want to talk about something. So I'm going to open the floor. I saw a hand there, and then we'll come to Councillor Ria and then Councillor Alder.
Just page 140, the role and recognition of unitary councils. I thought there could be an addition. It may be important to point out in the submission of as well that with the government's decision to retire regional councils and that their roles and responsibilities be absorbed by city councils, that there could be an increase in unitary authority models in the very near future. So without a lot of consideration or acknowledgement of unitary council in the paper, but legislation change that may lead to more unitary councils across the country, it's important that that there is that recognition of unitary councils, given so many districts are now looking at the possibility of converting to unitary council. That was my only notes. Sorry, I'm just having a quick check. Yes, it was. But other than that, thank you very much. That was a lot of work. I moved the paper.
So page 141, and it's under the issue of regulatory relief regime. Am I understanding this correctly, that if an entity is, if the council is misdirected in their treatment of an entity, individual or corporate, when it comes to land use, that we're asking that the council not be liable for extra costs that that entity might have incurred as a result of council's overreach?
No, so the regulatory relief regime is a new mechanism under the Act where, in terms of local rules, or that may potentially be national rules in relation to, I think before Christmas I talked about that diagram and those 5 particular areas where if you have stringent rules that have a significant impact on a person's ability to use their private land. So there's a few things you kind of have to tick before you get to the possibility of regulatory relief being a thing, an option. So that was coastal areas, sites of significance to Māori, biodiversity, landscapes, and I'm missing a 5th one, sorry, but you get the vibe. So that's quite a separate and a new thing compared to what you were just mentioning.
Okay.
Any other questions or Councillor Parra?
Not a question, and I don't I'm really proud of the way that we write submissions, which feels very human, and really represents us well as a region. I think these are spaces that can be very cold, and I think they're intended to be cold, but it seems like all of our submissions are very human and very warm, and whoever wrote them is an exceptional writer, because
it's not always me. My team. Yeah.
What could be a very boring read becomes a very moving piece of writing. So just wanted to commend the way in which our region is being presented and honoured in that way, even when we're providing recommendations to central government. I really like it when we tell them how to do their jobs. So thank you. And it's always so warm and polite, and it's always suggesting like, we'll show you how to do it. And so I just want to give that compliment, and if it hasn't already been seconded, I'm happy.
Any other questions or?
Any questions? I just like staff as well. It just shows that we're very experienced at what we do here. And if anyone reads that, the local government, and if ever they wanted to refer to a council that's got its act together, that reflects that totally. And I feel proud to be part of this organisation when I read submissions like that, because it's very, very professional.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. That's lovely. Okay, so I've got a mover and Councillor Ria, a seconder and Councillor Parata. All in favour? Thank you, Charlotte. And please convey our thanks, Jocelyn, to your team. I know they worked over Christmas to get things sorted. It's no easy, it looks easy once they whip it together. Okay, look at us. Closing out. Who's going to talk about? Give it a nudge. I will give it a nudge. Page 166, councillors. Give it a nudge, Nadine.
Okay, so we've had our voluntary buyout policy in effect following a negotiation for a 50-50 share agreement, $30 million, $15 million by council, and then if we were to go over that, we would need to go back to the jury with ministerial approval to do that, and then of course there would be consequential impacts for ratepayers, because ratepayers would have to come up with the other 50% for those buyouts. We are now at the end of that
budget, and we're in the end of the process, and so we did say that we would review that policy as to whether or not we would continue to apply that. And I'm making a recommendation that we now close that Cat 3 voluntary buyout policy. It was established for the purpose of the severe weather event Cyclone Gabrielle, so all the properties that we identified were back to that date. It was a government initiated buyout process of which we amongst other councils like Auckland and Hastings were part of the trial, and so I'm asking that you resolve to close that Cat 3 buyout policy.
Queries?
And I will not be discussing individual properties.
Not one, not at all. Councillor Muir and then Councillor Telfer.
Just wondering about the implications for so new red sticker policies, red sticker properties. Is there isn't there some kind of benefit in keeping the policy open in some regard for these properties that are now red stickered and that follow?
So the policy was created as a result of a government-initiated buyout. Council were really clear when we developed that policy that this is a one-off, concentrated to that Cyclone Gabrielle event, and we recall that there when the discussions were happening, there was a lot of reluctance to actually step into the space because of the expectation that this might be ongoing. With what we're looking at now, so red and yellow stickers don't have they are different to the Category 3, Category 2P. There might be some relationship, but they're treated completely different. So in this instance, it will be on the Crown to determine whether or not they want to continue something like that, but it would be under a new policy. The other thing I would say is about the buyout policy, a voluntary buyout policy. There are lessons that we learned along the way around how, because we were pretty much creating a policy standard for New Zealand amongst our councils to do this, there are a lot of lessons that we've learned. So I would recommend that it would have the same policy as it currently was if the government would say, yep, we're prepared to do some more about buyouts. But I doubt that that's going to be the case in this instance.
And just a supplementary, we were told earlier about 10,000 going to a red stickered property and the lower amounts for yellow and white. Where does that funding come from? Is it just general?
So that's our mayoral relief fund that we've put in place to get that early relief out the town.
There was just $100,000 added to that. I just got the email to that, so that gives us a nice bulk up to support our applicants. Who was next? I forgot. Councillor Telfer and then Councillor Thompson.
I'm done because Jeremy's actually asked the same.
Right, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, just in relation to the budget, so my understanding was 15 mil government, 15 mil council, so we've stuck to that budget as opposed to 30 mil, is that correct?
So Pauline, are we at 15 or do we get, because we did ask for a slight increase, but I can't remember if we moved the money around here.
It's slightly over, it's pretty much on par with what it is. But we had within the bridge buyouts, they increased that. So it's pretty much on par. There's about a difference of about 100 or 200,000.
Yeah, it's supplementary. I see a lot of these buyout properties have still got the houses that haven't been demolished. So have we got these additional costs to come, and is there a budget for the demolition of all these houses?
We have put aside a budget for the demolition, and that's been currently just chipped away at in terms of the programming of demolition of those properties. And so that was really clear that that wasn't part of the deal of the $30 million cost split. So the council had to carry that cost, so it was budgeted for. I can't tell you what it was pulling from.
Yeah, so just supplementary version. effectively, that was part of our consultation when there was a change with the $204 million package. We put in there what is the cost, what would the cost to us, what do we actually get, and we said that, it was included the demolition costs and the forecast that was within that. So that is within the 3-year plan, what we had estimated for those and the cost associated with it and the rates impact.
So
You will need to speak up, I can't hear.
sorry, I didn't quite correct. So the demolition costs were part of that 15 million, or the demolition costs are additional to the 15 million?
Additional.
Additional. Are we able to get an email or something just in regards to what our demolition costs?
It's only started, but as part of that consultation said it might have been around about 3.5 million, and that included restoration of those, taking the properties to be restored thereafter, and it was also based on the size of the properties that we actually had at that particular time.
So that's that wasn't forecast in any 3-year plans or anything that's up by the budget?
Just confirm, that's what we consulted on when we were going through, and we included all of those additional costs that council had to bear with the category 3 in order to take up the 204 million overall package. Yes, all of those costs were forecast and included
From the beginning. Councillor Gregory.
Just noting that we don't need this policy anymore and that everything has been tied up. I'm happy to move this.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Gregory, seconded by Councillor. Questions or queries? All in favour? Aye. Okay, next is the Forestry consenting noting paper. Jocelyn. Missing one.
What was that, sorry?
176. 176.
Good on you, Larry.
Okay, it's just a test to see if people are awake or not. Well, obviously, I'm the only one who's not awake.
Hungry, I want some lunch.
The way we're going, we're going to work in ease. Let's go.
So just, I'll take the paper as read, but just for some further context, you would have received emails a couple of weeks ago in relation to this request from the Remuneration Authority, and it was decided that there was needed to be a discussion about it, so this is put in front of you to have that discussion.
Remember, we sent out the email about it's really not a big thing.
Oh, no.
It is really not a big thing, but it is because we will all probably have different opinions of do you live, if I live, can I be the mayor of the Hawke's Bay? That's what it comes down, and then they have to pay my petrol to drive there all the time. I want accommodation. And some people might think, oh, kapa, yeah, that's fine. Other people might think, no, stink, you need to live in the region. So I think it's really difficult to strike because we would all think and feel about it, and you could see it from our emails, how we approach it and how we look at it. So I think it's really tough. It was a tough one because like both sides, you can see that people can say, well, we want to elect whoever we want to elect to be our mayor, and we're happy to carry that cost. We know she lives in Gisborne, but we want her to be the mayor of the Hawke's Bay. And then other people saying, no, over our dead body. If you want to be the mayor of the Hawke's Bay, come and live there and live amongst them. We're not going to waste money flying you with Sun Air all the time and putting you up in a flash hotel. So both sides have merit to it. But I'm going to open it if people want to, if people feel like debating it. Councillor Gibson, go first.
I'm not wed to any of it, but maybe as a starting point, I'm someone who's lived it a little bit.
Yep.
And so, to me, when you live outside of... So firstly, I think, in pure self-interest, I think that the voting base should be able to vote for whoever they like. And that's their decision. However you run your campaign, that's your decision, right? And whoever that gets voted in, gets voted in. Secondly, as someone who's lived outside of the region, the realities of the scrutiny when you're living outside of the region, I don't think To come to Gisborne, I covered all my own travel expenses because that was something I knew was coming up. It was my choice to not be living in region. So I don't think that the only piece of support that I think is really important is the child support, is the childcare, right? If I'm the primary caregiver and I need to be online to attend meetings, I don't want my kids running underfoot. Like, that's the only one that I think is really important. The house security, you're not under the same security, same scrutiny. The travel, I don't think that's my own opinion. You know what I'm saying. I'll just place that there.
Thank you for sharing that. Councillor Gregory.
Just on that, everybody knew that Sam was in wherever he was, and he was, so for that 3 months, he should have been certainly entitled to the same benefits that we are here, and everybody who's elected, it's just a democratic thing, that people have voted for that person, they know where they live, and they know what the benefits are of being a councillor, which are not many. There are not that many benefits. And
There's parking in town.
Only if you're on council business. And so I think it's important that every elected member has access to the same small little benefits.
So what in the middle of a term, say Dion is going to work in France for 6 months, and I'm like, well, I'm going to France as well. In the middle, people didn't know I was not going to be here. Suddenly I'm off to France or Australia or wherever, and do you then think the local authority should pay for my travel? Or
not for travel, but for maybe you need to go to a library to get to a Zoom, or maybe you've got some children on your feet. Yeah, and that happened with Terry Sheldrake as well. He left before the end of the term. And so why would he not be entitled to those things? People voted for him. I'm sure the people that vote for that person. And I actually asked a few people, did you vote for Sam Gibson? And do you think he's entitled to that? And yes, they do.
Good. Okay, Councillor Foster and then Councillor Parata.
Yeah, I've got a bit of a different view. I think if you're going to stand for council, if you're passionate about a region, you need to live here. You don't know what's going on in this region when you're not living in this region. And when you could open this up, like there's an elected guy in Horowhenua. He moved to Ireland for 2 years and he got full pay. He was zooming in for 2 years. So the government, there's no legislation to actually, not allow him to do that. That's ridiculous. He could just zoom in whenever he wanted. We've had examples here of people going overseas for a supposed length of time and not even zooming in, but still getting away with it and being paid full. Let's have some credibility and some conscience on this job. We're here, we live local, we should reside local and get the allowances accordingly local. If you're out of the region, even if people vote for you, a lot of people might vote for you because of a name. They don't realise that you're living out of the region.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to allow 2 more people, just listen to me, I'm going to allow Councillor Parata and Councillor Ria to speak. There are differing opinions here, and then I'm going to vote. We're going to vote, and wherever it falls, that is what we decide, because, like I say, there's not a right or a wrong here. There are different perceptions and ideas. We've nutted it out a little bit via email, but that's why this paper came to us today. So Councillor Parata and then Councillor Ria, and then I'm going to put it to a vote.
As a councillor who couldn't participate without the benefits that we get as a councillor, which is Debbie Gregory has just politely told everyone that there's not that many benefits, I would not have been able to participate. There have been more than one occasion where I have had little humans sitting underneath the desk by me and standing in behind Zooms. I've brought my children into council without the support that council provided me while I was living in Pretoria to get to and from, which is actually, at that point, there was a point there, it was like a 2.5 hour drive one way at one point, and Annie was doing it for 3 hours.
But you guys are still in
region. We're still in region, but what I'm trying to say is that there might come a time that a really committed councillor needs to move out of region for whatever reason. And there might come a time where we need at this table people who are deeply committed to the region but cannot live in region, who have the skills to do this job and to do it well. There might come a time. And my whole point is that it is really up to our people to decide, so long as you declare it. And I mean that publicly, like you need to be telling people, I don't live in the region, I don't plan to live in the region, or I've had to move out of it, so that whānau can make an informed decision, but it is not really our decision to make. It's for them to make.
Okay, Councillor Rio, round it out for us.
I'm also in support of Councillor Gregory and Councillor Pata, because I do believe it's a voter's choice, that as long as voters are well informed on the whereabouts, the positioning of, initially I didn't like it, and then when I read the points that Councillor Gregory pointed out, I thought, yeah, I don't like it, so I wouldn't vote for it. But other people might, and it's not my choice to make this decision on other people's behalf, and for that reason, I'm in support.
Okay. Everyone happy for us to move to voting?
One for, one, two.
Everyone happy to go to voting? 177. Now we just need to figure out which side of these we sit on, because the wording says, considers the authority's proposed changes to remove all restrictions on elected members that reside outside, instructs the chief executive to remove any restrictions in the current allowance policy to allow elected members who live outside of the area to claim everything, instructs the chief executive to change the elected members' allowance and recovery to place a restriction on all or the specified. Okay, so my brains are so fried. I have got no idea what this is.
You won't give us a break.
So the recommendations we made, is that saying we remove the recommendation? So Donna, clarify it, thank you.
Sorry, in the current policy, we actually haven't restricted, we've only restricted one of the allowances. Sorry, I'm just, so what we can do is we can either remove all restrictions, or we can say we can remove some of them. And what are they?
Well, I think the feeling is
you can allow this one, but not that one.
So the feeling from the people that want to keep it was, to me, the voters choose someone. Someone has to declare when they say they're going to stand that they're going to live outside. So we want to keep, even though Councillor Gibson noted more around the childcare stuff, I think the overall feel was that if you can claim, you can claim. Yep.
At the moment, it's only the travel time allowance is the only one that's actually restricted in our elected members' allowances and policy.
So that would be the only one that we would remove, the travel time allowance.
It's the only one that's restricted.
So you hear that in our current policy, only the travel time is restricted. So what we are saying is that if I need to fly from France for 24 hours, I will claim 24 hours. I'm just kidding.
No, it specifically says live, not holiday, live.
I sit in the middle, can I?
No. I think we've heard that one, but I think the rest of said we either do nothing or we do everything. That's what I was hearing. So I hear what you said, just like the childcare thing, but what I picked up from discussions, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that there was a group of people saying voters choose someone, they know they live outside of the region, and they should be allowed to claim that. And the opposite of that, people say, no, you should live inside the region. Is that correct? Okay. So this recommendation, which I'll moved by Councillor Gregory, and seconded by Councillor Ria. Everyone is clear what you're voting for. So what what we are voting for is Debbie's, where someone can live wherever the voters know when they voted that this person declared that they lived outside of the region, so people can claim stuff. Correct, Donna?
If you vote to remove it.
So if you vote yes on this, that Debbie moved,
that is what you are leaning. If you vote more leaning towards no, someone should live in region, then you vote no to this recommendation. Is that correct?
There is also scope to decide which to do and which not to do.
No, we don't want to do that. I can tell you this is not big enough for us to really make it. That might affect one or two people either.
Sorry, didn't you just say that if we vote for, for us as a council, we're only removing one restriction because we currently only have one restriction, which is the travel. So even this vote, we're not opening up all these other restrictions for us as a council. It'll be one thing, travel.
Correct. Everything will be.
Everything will be able to be claimed.
Everything is already open. The only thing restricted is travel, according to our policy, our council policy. That's just want to point that out to be clear.
All in favour?
Aye.
Contrary? Ooh, exciting! Lead us, Rose.
Can we have a minute to record his voting again?
Yes, so I'm going to go, lower your hands, 4. So it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7. Hands against. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can be glad because I've got the vote. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the carry that, but I would have had the casting vote. Just saying, if it was anyway. No. I am very sorry. Grab a snack. Still working. Focus. Everyone, you can survive without food for 7 days. I just want to say, you will be fine.
As long as this isn't naked and
You
afraid.
will be fine. We'll be finished in 15 minutes and then we're going to have a beautiful lunch. The next is a...
Are you on a diet?
The next... Hello. Can everyone just please quiet down? Please.
You're going to feed us.
No, we're here to work today. We don't get many advantages like Councillor Debbie Gregory said. You will get lunch in 15 minutes. I'm sure everyone will survive. If you have to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. We just want to finish this. If we break now, Council will go to 4 o'clock today. If we finish it now, we will be out of here in 15 minutes. So you can choose if you want to break now, when you put it to the floor. Who wants to break right now? Good decision. Okay, page 182. This is a paper by Jocelyn.
Through you, Mrs. Chair. Good afternoon, councillors. Late last year, we had several conversations around resource consent conditions pertaining to high-risk forestry activities. And so we committed to coming back to this table to provide some further context, some statistics around our processing numbers, etc., but also a bit of information in terms of some of the continuous improvement we've done, and elaborated a bit on our process with the standard consultations. You did an awesome job, and I will hand over to you.
I'm taking the paper as read, and only one correction in the appendix. You will notice that there are some figures that show the processing timeframes is quite high. That's a system error, but MEP do know about that. So the system doesn't allow for us to change the data around. All of these there's some high figures that should be sitting on 0, which are showing like 300 and something days.
Those relate to resource consents that we've called in for review. There's no mechanism through our the programming software to be able to account for that particular function ultimately.
Cool. Okay. Happy to take questions. Just remember this is a noting paper, information given. Please we are not going to debate every single thing that might have some high numbers or low numbers. This is more to give us a governance overview of a process and also to make sure councillors are across all the facts. That's what staff, because they heard a lot of questions in the last while, And so we're very grateful that you've pulled all of this together for councillors to take a good look and see the real data of what is being done in that space. Any questions or queries in regards to, that starts on page 182? Councillor Gregory.
I also have a question relating to the zero tolerance limit. So that's it's on page 189 that I've written my notes on. But I'm just wondering, does anyone who's giving a consent achieve that consent without having that risk management plan? Does anyone?
Yeah, through Ms. Chair, are you sorry, Councillor Gregory, are you talking about is a risk assessment mandatory in order to gain or receive resource consent for?
Just like in reality, you're doing consents and you've got a zero tolerance limit. So I would imagine that every single forestry person who's going for a consent is going to need a risk management plan.
Sure.
Is that correct?
I can answer that question for you. So what a really important distinction is the standard resource consent conditions that have been worked alongside with the industry for the last 3 years only pertain to earthworks and harvesting, so they're land use consent. Therefore, by default, by law, it doesn't account for any discharge. So that's why the standard consent condition is present on the consent, on each consent, that it officially states there's no ability to discharge when we're dealing with a land use consent. If an applicant is wishing to discharge or their activity is going to result in a discharge, they are to apply for for a separate resource consent for the discharge.
So, in reality, that's every consent person, isn't it? For who's applying to cut down a forest, they're all going, because as you say, that zero tolerance limit is fine, but why don't we just have it? Don't say that, just say you just have to have a risk management plan instead.
It's for those applicants that do not wish to apply for discharge. There are some that...
Is there some?
There are some that will not apply for it. So that's what that condition relates to. And then for everybody that does apply for a discharge, that standard consent condition is removed from their consent.
Okay, any questions? Councillor Alder.
Thank you. It's general comment. The consent is dropping. We've only had 5 this year, correct? Out of 20? It's running at 25% approval from 97 to 67. And as I mentioned earlier, we're facing a wall of wood out there, and it's not helping. Just on point, I'd like to reference point 5 on page 184, which is saying that council is experiencing pressure, which we experienced this morning. And then we're seeing here that this pressure has extended up to the ministers with their expectations and the raising the bar. If I can I quote from Hoffman-Play's letter to the council, which sort of counters that. What he says, and I quote, "I understand that the council and Eastern Wood Council have agreed to continue engagement on the consent conditions that will be needed for harvesting to occur in high-risk areas. I see this work as critically important in both enabling forestry companies to have certainty of their operations going forwards and the council to have confidence that the appropriate mitigations are in place to manage the ongoing risk." Now, I see that as the minister saying that we have to keep forestry going, and I don't think we are with 5 consents.
Okay. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll thank you, Councillor Alder. I think what you're speaking to is 2 separate matters. So 97%, that figure that comes through our annual report, right, relates to the number of resource consents granted that were processed within 20 statutory days, right? Within the statutory time frame. Right, so the what you're saying here in terms of 5 out of 20 consents have been processed so far this year at a 25% rate has nothing to do with the statutory time frame processed. It means out of 20 consents lodged, 5 of those have been granted so far.
Yes.
Okay, so with relation to the resource consents that come in, a lot of them, most of them are on red zone, very high risk land, right? And they are high-risk activities. The applicants wish to and desire, and we get that through pre-application meetings, we work with them, alongside them from a very early stage onwards. Their desire is for non-notified process, right? So you know there's notification, public notification, limited notification, which ultimately brings the consent process into the hands of an independent commissioner and a hearings panel, and submitters are able to be part of the process. That's not the desire of the applicant. Therefore, a more robust process must be taken in terms of the assessment of effects on environment and on people. So when the proportionality of the time taken to process consents is directly commensurate with the desire of applicants to go through a notified process, and the council taking their time and the due diligence to have the correct process. So they end up with a consent, a resource consent that's granted, that won't be stood to test against judicial review, and that will have the right mitigation in place. With relation to Minister McClay's letter, thank you for that. So over the last, and probably in the last few months, we've been working with the Eastland Wood Council, and also alongside some of the chief executives and directors of several forestry companies. So we work through, as you mentioned, that resource consent conditions, that the one consent condition that basically says anything at risk of mobilization into waterways and downstream properties has to be removed. However, the risk management approach, which was seen as an effective remedy through and method through the enforcement over procedure, was really well received. So therefore, we're getting more and more comments that this risk management approach is something that's enabling and something that the forestry industry really wants to work with us on.
Any other questions in regards to this paper, Councillor?
No questions. Thank you for the report. I'd like to move it.
Thank you for that. Councillor Gregory.
Can I second it, but also really stoked to see in the next steps that we will be getting 6 monthly updates. That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Good. All in favour?
Aye.
Last paper. Look at us working. Thank you. This is a resource management plan working update. Thanks, Charlotte. Lucky last, Charlotte. Anything you wanted to add?
No. Standing between you and lunch, it's all good.
This is
Fast enough to do.
just giving us
an update of what we've been up to, given some of the changes and how we've pivoted. It's not the first pivot we've had with the RMP program for those that have been around the table since the start, but this is the latest pivot.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Thank you for updating us as you go, because I know it's a fast-moving environment, and we're going to find ourselves in a very fast-moving environment this whole year. So thank you for the update. I'm happy to move this paper. Do I have a seconder? Seconder, Councillor Borosh. Any questions? Carried. Thank you, team. Officially closed. Don't go. Don't go. I officially close our public meeting. I move that we go into public excluded, seconded by Councillor